Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me tonight is Jon Del Arroz. How are you doing, buddy?
I can't complain. I've had a great dinner. I had a sea bass over saffron risotto with lobster, and it was just delightful. And I've been drinking martinis for about 3 hours now, so you got to catch up.
Yeah, I will catch up. Well, sort of. Maybe not. I probably won't catch up with that legacy, but I'm gonna enjoy myself. We'll have a few drinks, and yeah, we'll figure some of this stuff out. So what we're gonna be talking about today is one, I'm gonna get to know Jon because I don't know him very well, other than a few things I have read on the internet. And as we all know, the best way to get to know somebody is to read what other people say about them. So we're going to figure that out. And then aside from that, we're going to talk about what it's like to be a creator, how Jon ties into the whole comicsgate or doesn't tie into comicsgate, how what the status of the comics industry is, what it's like to be a horrific Nazi racist, as described by other people online. All of that stuff. We're going to talk about a little bit about Jon's lawsuit with WorldCon, and we're going to talk about the recent deplatforming or shutdown or whatever you want to call it of Chuck Dixon's IndieGoGo with Alt Hero Q. So we've got a stacked night. Please participate at your leisure, but mostly enjoy the conversation. Help us. Whoa. Here we go. I got to move that. Help us move this along. And if you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask. And Jon and I will do our best to answer. But right away, we do have a couple super chats. And we've got Panboy Lando Soy Child Dong Lover, which is a long name. It says, Jon, what do Vox's balls taste like? I don't know if you have any experience with that, but if you do, I guess let us know. And then
Salty and chocolatey.
Salty and chocolatey. Yeah. Okay. Never judge a book by its covers, ladies and gentlemen. It's chocolate, not vanilla. David.
He's a baker, you know?
Yeah. David Debergerac says late. Yes, I am late, and I will take full responsibility for that, as I was trying to fumble through navigating all of this junk on YouTube. Guys, this is terrible. I am 100% bad at this. So anyway, so Jon, you have been drinking martinis all night, right?
Yeah, I typically drink martinis. I'm a red wine or martini guy. I stick with that. I sometimes do switch to bourbon, but it's a rare occasion. I'm usually out with some buddies or something like that. So.
Sure. Well, I picked up this weird bottle of whiskey today. It's a gimmick bottle, so who knows what it's going to be like. But this is the Game of Thrones White Walker edition of Johnny Walker, and it's hard to hold.
That stuff never goes well.
No, and it's hard to hold on to because they recommend serving it frozen. So this is straight out of the freezer. I've poured myself a glass, and I'm going to do a live review. I've never had this stuff before, and it was really cheap, so it's probably garbage. Here we go. Okay, that's interesting. It's very obviously cold going down, but it's got
quite a word.
Yeah, it's got a burn coming back up with not anywhere near enough smoke for me. It's not like a Johnny Black at all. Similar to a red, but a little milder. Got a kind of a wine feel to it, like a white wine. It's very sweet, very sweet.
That's not a good thing for a bourbon. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's not a great whiskey, but it's fine. We'll see if it does the job.
You'll be switching to makers before this stream's over. I guarantee.
I'm sure I will.
I'm making that prediction now.
Okay, I'm getting requests to turn the chat to live chat from Top Chat, and that is OBS's fault, and I'm suing them tomorrow. All right, so let's move on. Let me get to know you. So Jon, you are a comic writer, but you're not just a comic writer. You're also a sci-fi writer. Is that correct?
Yeah. I've kind of been all over the map. I started writing prose kind of in high school for books and stuff like that. I finished my first book around 2012. About the same time, I kind of got disillusioned with trying to write books, and so I wrote comics because I could write the story faster. And that's kind of where Flying Sparks was born, which was my first very successful IndieGoGo. I made $30,000, you know, as a first-time comic writer. That was pretty exciting. And I've been making that for the last few years. I've just been paying my artists like $50, $100, whatever I could afford out of my paycheck to like get a page or two a month. Until I can finally like actually get some actual story done, built up a backlog, kept that going. So I did that. I went back into comics. I was writing RPGs. I was working with the Deadlands group for a while. I was working with this group called Tiny Epic Galaxies. And I'm sorry, that's actually a board game. It was Tiny. Gosh, I'm terrible. I wrote for this book. It's Tiny something.
Should I pull up your Wikipedia page? And...
Wow, this is what happens when you drink, friends. Don't drink.
Yeah, kids, stay in school, don't drink.
I got hired by Star Realms, which is an app/card game, to do a novelization of their game. That was my first book that came out, but the third book I wrote. And then I went back into prose again. My book for Steam and Country like really took off. That series has become #1 bestseller on Amazon and has won me an award. And that's kind of my like claim to fame. And then kind of as comics was coming back around, I also do journalism like for the Federalist. So I write for the Federalist. They're a conservative think tank sort of group. And I was writing about Marvel and DC early last year. And I discovered that Marvel was pretty much blacklisting anybody to the right of Chairman Mao. And I was like, wow, this is pretty bad. And I went to every Marvel writer at the time who was coming out with a book that month, and I went to their Twitters. Every single one of them was saying anti-Trump, anti-conservative, or anti-Christian stuff and like nasty stuff. There wasn't a single writer who was even silent about the matter. They were all lockstep about it. And I was like, this is crazy. And that's when I got in touch with Chuck Dixon with the article. I was like, what's going on? And he said, look, we've been blacklisted for years. This has been like this very badly, and it's finally coming out. And I'm like, this is a crazy thing I just uncovered. So I wrote that up for the Federalist. It went viral, got me very popular. And then I started kind of getting back into comics again after a number of years for that. And yeah, that's the rest is kind of history from there.
So
I do a lot.
Yeah. So then has your entire career been writing in some capacity or another, or did you have some other job that you were doing to supplement while you started your writing career? Because
I've definitely got another job that I'm very successful at, and I don't talk about it because I don't want to cross the streams.
Right,
so.
Right. Well, yeah, and I was just wondering because you know, when I went to school to be a writer, literature creative writing was my undergrad, and I had lofty dreams of writing books and movies and stuff like that. And then I realized that I lived in Minnesota and didn't want to live on a coast. And that kind of put a damper on things. And the other thing was I got married and started having kids. It was like, oh, I have to do other things because
that messed up my life a little bit too. So when I've done everything across the board. So my first real claim to fame, and actually still my biggest claim to fame in terms of, well, maybe not my biggest now, but closest to biggest, is the fact that I was in a band in 2006, and I sang, I played keyboards and guitar, and one of my songs got bought by MTV's Real World New Orleans.
Nice.
So it played the background of that show, and I get royalties to this day from it. But it was just in the background. Like nobody ever found out I existed, but it was on this TV show. So millions of people have heard my music, but nobody knows it's me.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's always been an interesting aspect of the creator universe, I guess, for me, is there are so many writers out there who are, well, not just writers, but writers are a good example because they're ghost writers, or they write under a pseudonym or a pen name. And either their pen name or the person who hired them to write their story gets all the credit. But it's like here's a writer who may be absolutely fantastic, and you'll never know who it was. And then yeah, there's tons of music out there that's not from some big name band that goes on tour and has a bunch of albums, but you know, it gets picked up and used in some major property, and it's this integral part of it, and you'll never, unless you really care and like dig into it, you'll have heard this song thousands of times and never know anything about the person who wrote and performed it. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, our culture's got a lot of stuff just like all over. It's like you can meet all these interesting people just who have had all these different parts of things. It's very fun, and I've definitely done that, and especially on the ghostwriting side. You know, once you kind of become a popular writer, you know, people reach out to you, and so I've met some interesting people who I've ghostwritten some properties that I definitely can't talk about because, you know, I got to keep them quiet.
Right.
But they've done some very interesting things for sure.
So I've got a question from Bagel Goose, and this one's directly to you. It says, John, just curious, why did you block me on Twitter?
I don't know who you are, but I can unblock you if you want. I don't really care. So,
yeah. So Bagel Goose, make sure you drop your Twitter. Is your Twitter handle just Bagel Goose? Because if it is, just go ahead and drop that in the chat, and John can unblock you. So.
Yeah. I don't know. Unless you said something nasty to me, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
If you're not going to keep saying nasty things to me, I won't keep you blocked, though. I don't care.
Okay. So you've been a writer for a long time. You've worked on projects you can't talk about because that's the way that writing works as a profession. Is some of the stuff you work on you don't get credit for. You just get a paycheck, and that's the way it goes. You got into comics working for the Federalist, which is a weird way to get back into comics, or I should say got back into it.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that.
Because I don't, when I think of the Federalist, the last thing on my mind is comics. Although, as I've been, because, you know, my channel didn't start out talking about comics at all, but I've been talking about it a lot lately. And as I try and explain that to people who know me as a lawyer, just locally, they're like, oh, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to this comic guy. And they're, what? Why? And it's like, well, because this is where the war is, right? This is where speech is being decided right now. We don't have a way to really fight Hollywood in any sort of effective way, because yet. But then in Hollywood, the names are too big. The popularity and celebrity is too big. I mean, and they have the power to cross out, right, the Mel Gibsons. They have the power to cross out the whatever Baldwin it is that isn't an idiot. Stephen Baldwin's. They have a power to just cross out those guys if they dare speak the wrong word.
Adam Baldwin.
Adam Baldwin, which I never remember. The one that's not dead. Are any of them dead? No, it was the Penn. Chris Penn is dead. See, and this is a problem. I can name the aristocracy of Hollywood through these families that have legions of actors, which is terrifying. But yeah, so Hollywood's too big. Mainstream literature is a weird and inaccessible place. It doesn't seem to be on the front of the culture war yet, although I think it's getting there with people like J.K. Rowling being outspoken. Stephen King, of course, has been an idiot for years. He's a brilliant writer, but once he opens his mouth outside of a horror book, it makes me want to scream, way more than any of his books do. And but
I have theories about that.
about Stephen King?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to hear him.
Stephen King was in a car accident a number of years ago.
Okay.
And it was that trauma, I think, really messed with him. And if you look at just like the delineation of Stephen King, like from when he was just like awesome writer Stephen King up to that point, I really feel like that messed him up to a point, and he's just kind of never been the same since. So if you kind of look at the transition of where things really started to change, it's definitely around that time period.
Sure. Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of ways that can happen. Either something broke in his brain, or he got some sort of underlying trauma, or maybe he thought maybe he'd always been kind of a cuck or whatever under the surface, but he thought, well, wait, what if I died in that car accident and then no one would know how much of a cuck I am, and I have to go out and tell the world. Stephen King, I love you. Please come on my show. No,
yeah, no, we'd all love to hang out with Stephen King. I don't even care. It's like the guy says awful things about, like, you know, all of my favorite people and and you know, things I believe in, definitely. But it's just like I'd still hang out with the guy, you know.
Oh yeah, and that's my philosophy on life. Like we can, what happened to our ability to disagree with people and still like just sit down and maybe have a drink or have some food with them?
Trump derangement syndrome happened. So
that certainly had a big influence, I think. Oh, we've got a response from Bagel Goose. He says, our only Twitter interaction was when I retweeted your WorldCon live stream at the Bagel Goose. So I think, sir, you owe
at the Bagel Goose.
Yeah, at the Bagel Goose is his Twitter handle.
The bagel, like
a bagel,
like the
Bagel Goose,
and goose like the bird.
All one word. And hey, I can if you want, I can DM it to you later. If you don't want to deal with it right now.
I'm doing it right now. I'm going to handle this. So.
Guys, we are mending bridges live on Rekieta Law.
The guy loves Cecil. I love Cecil too. So it's like, we should be friends. I'm following him too.
We are building better bridges right here that are longer lasting than any of the women engineers in the world. That's a joke about that bridge that fell down.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm not hashtag not all women engineers, guys. Calm down. No, so we've lost the ability though to sit down and talk to people who we disagree with, or even if we have
even agree with mostly, but like we just disagree with one thing. Like it's social media. I mean, it's just so stupid. Like, I mean, there's a lot of fights that just are completely avoidable, that are just pointless. And you know, this goes with, you know, you want to talk about WorldCon, which is actually kind of the reason I'm here talking to you about you know, the law stuff. Like, I mean, these guys, all they had to do was just talk to me and like just pick up the phone. Like, what's your problem? I'll tell you what my problems are. We'll work it out. And like they just couldn't do that because like social media just ramps you up so much in terms of like our team versus their team. You know, it all becomes a zero-sum game, and it's kind of, you know, it's ugly. It's ugly. I don't know. I want to love everybody. That's what I'm here to do. So
yeah, because you know there are plenty of people out there who and I mean, I find some of their views abhorrent. I've often said, I don't know if this is true anymore, but I used to say I'm probably the most conservative person you'll ever meet, but at the same time, I'm so pro freedom that I wouldn't impose that on anyone. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't judging you the entire time.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's okay.
I said it on, you know, I've got my own stream that I do. It's called the lunch stream, and we talk, and it's like, you know, everybody talks about my, like, you know, extreme right wing associations and all that. You know, what's more offensive and probably would bother everybody a lot more is that I talk and hang out with David Gerald. David Gerald is an original Star Trek writer. The dude is like so far left communist, like plus like he's like a radical homosexual lobbyist. Like you would never think I'd be able to just hang out with this guy, but I can. And we have hung out, and we hang out, you know, and talk regularly. And he's a great guy. I mean, you know, he's been a really shitty person to a lot of my friends too. This is what makes it hard.
Right.
I mean, he's definitely really done public terrible things to my friends. But at the same time, it's like, you know, that's not going to stop me from hanging out with the guy. He's never been rude to me. And you know, I mean, when it comes up, I tell him, you know, I would like you to not talk about my friends that way, of course. But you know, it is what it is, and I think that's healthy. I don't. It's more fun to hang out with people of all over the map so that you can actually get an experience, actually kind of learn. If you're just hanging out with the same insular thing, you're really never going to have like a broadened perspective on life.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, is your art? I'm getting feedback. That's weird. Yeah. Oh, it stopped now. I don't know. My mic's being weird. I was actually trying to address that. Someone mentioned that my mic was doing this thing where it's spiking volume, and I'm really sorry about that, guys. I think it might have been my pop filter was touching the microphone, so hopefully I've got that fixed. I'll try and stay away from it and not like do my weird like I'm reading Torah type thing while I talk, because I think that might have something to do with it. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's important to be able to talk to everybody because you've always got to be able to challenge and refine your views. And if you, at the end of the day, if you talk to a communist for 24 straight hours and still live through it without going to a gulag or something, but you talk to a communist for a while and you come out and you don't agree with a word that they've said, but you've sharpened your own opinions and you've
100%.
yeah, and you've found a way
It's not
to.
even about that. Sometimes I just want to, like, get lunch with the guy and just hang out. I mean, if you're only obsessing over that, you're really shortening your life. I mean, like, it doesn't matter that much, to be honest.
Right. And the other thing that that is likely, I talked about this. I did an interview with a convicted pedophile a while ago, and part of that, what we ended up talking about was the idea that people, or what I ended up talking about, I guess, because this is kind of my personal experience with dealing with people who are criminals, is like you've got people are like a grid, right? And they've got all these little facets about them, and something or opinion or feature is one box on the grid. And if you judge the entire person by that one box, you're not getting an accurate view of the person. And I think that's what really social media has been doing to us, is because people become these causes, right? Either by their own choice or by the way other people frame it is, well, you did this thing, so now you're this cause. And then there's like a feedback loop where people get attention from that. Or they self-start, as this cause. When I was in law school, you'd run into all these people who were causes. Like that was their whole personality was hooked up in gender identity or reading global literacy or something, and they really didn't care about anything outside of that. So it got hard to see the rest of the grid with those people. But I think that's what social media really does to us, is it pigeonholes us into those boxes.
Does. And the corporate algorithms make it worse, because Amazon turns us into an algorithm so they could just sell us shit, right? And then and Google does this too, and Facebook does this too. So they actually want to compartmentalize us even more into these boxes. It's really dehumanizing, and that's kind of one of the big reasons I take a stand against big tech. And it's also like one of the reasons I'm like really big into Kanye West right now, because Kanye like really has like transcended this and like figured this out, and he's just telling them no. And it's great watching everybody flip out about this, watching everybody just call him crazy and all that, when he's really just like trying to teach everybody how to human again.
Now I'm kind of confused though, because I've seen Kanye and he's not an Aryan. And I've heard that you, according to WorldCon, right?
They said on their website, I'm a racist bully, which I'm not. I don't think I'm not qualified to say what a racist. As a Hispanic man, like it's like I'm like full Hispanic, like both sides of my family. So it's like I don't know that I'm qualified to say what racist is, because technically I'm supposed to be outside of that. But yeah, I'm also a big into Kanye, and Hispanic people and Black people typically don't get along, which is another thing that is
no. Let me stop you, sir. Racism is only limited to the white man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, and you.
But yeah, I love Kanye. I really do. I just think he's like really on the right track, and like I want to follow his path like big time. I think it's pure enlightenment right there.
Yeah, it is really interesting what he's doing, because of course he is breaking all sorts of conceptions of the popular class, we'll say. The popular level view of politics where Donald Trump is a racist from half of the country, right? Donald Trump's a racist who hates women from half the country. Great. And then Kanye comes out, high profile, and really likes him. So the processing breaks, and Kanye is either an idiot, or he must be, compromised by the man in some sort, because that's how this always breaks down, right?
It's the zero sum game every single time, and it's garbage. I've never actually met a human being where they have that like all or nothing. Once you actually get into it with them. And I actually believe that even about the comics pros. Like I even believe that if I got on the phone with Chuck Wendig and actually just had like a conversation with him, he's been really awful to me since I started getting popular. He wrote a blog about me last year, just talking about how bad I was, because I was nominated for the Dragon Award for military science fiction last year, and that put me on the map for him. And I'm like, I've never interacted with this guy. Who is this? And he just blogged about me, and then they just started saying nasty things about me on Twitter and all that. And it's like, okay, well, hi, I'm Jon, and he kept going. But I even believe that with him, even if I got on the phone with him and just actually had a dialogue and a conversation with him, like we'd find something we have in common. We would find some human experience, and there's just like, I don't know. I don't like hating it. It's a bad thing all around.
Absolutely. I got a super chat from Ryan English from a little while back. He said, "Adventures in Boomer Tech with Nick Rekieta." Yes, I'm bad at this. I know. I need Ryan English. I'm going to hire you for free to run the show for me, so I don't have to screw up all the time. But yeah, that's interesting. The question is always, I'm the same way. Like if you've got a problem with me or whatever, let's talk about it. Because I think if you sit down, you talk with someone, and if you talk with me, for example, and you say, you know what, I really hate this about you, and it's like, okay, well let's figure that out, because maybe we disagree, but like we don't have to hate each other, and that's not. Maybe you just misunderstand me. Is one thing, or you've heard something wrong, or you've decided something in your head. But let's figure that out first and be people. And the people who are willing to engage me on that, typically we get along really well, because I don't really care. Like I don't care. I don't have, like you said, I don't have time to fight and hate people.
I'm working a full-time job that is actually very strenuous. Generally, I've got kids, I've got a wife, and then on top of that, I have to write every day like 2,000 words, because I'm one of those like pulp style writers that like I want to just like produce content constantly. Like Chuck Dixon is my hero. I want to be him, and he comes out with like 3 comics a month. I mean, the guy's just like so fast, it's unbelievable, and he's done that for decades. And sure. I really believe in that style of storytelling, and I love that style of storytelling because you get so much content so fast, and you get so many interesting concepts because they're always fresh in that writer's head, right? Because they're going so fast, they're really going for those ideas. So it's like I'm spending most of my time doing this. I'm not thinking about like world trade. What are the exact trade situation with China we need to do. It's just like that's not really my expertise.
Well, wait a minute though. Okay, so you must not be a comic professional then. Like you must not identify as a comic professional, because I have found that the people who do identify as comic pros are not only experts in all things comic, they're also experts in marketing, economics. They're legal experts. I recently found out that my personal hero, Jamal Igle, who's the greatest attorney online, is also an avian expert. He was spouting the hot truth about birds, how they will die. They can't breathe or fly at 10,000 feet, apparently, which is new to me, because I thought I had heard of birds flying higher than 10,000 feet, but on Twitter today, which, if you'll know, has a logo of a bird, I learned from Jamal Igle that they cannot. So when you say that you are not an expert on
me, so I don't get his wisdom.
If you say that you're not an expert on any subject, and I have to automatically assume that you don't consider yourself a comic pro. Is that true, or do you consider yourself a comics pro?
Well, as an attorney, you know that you would love me as a client because I just claim that I'm not an expert at anything, right? And you know exactly what that means as an attorney. That's just gold right there.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I do a lot of things. I write comic books. I've made $50,000 on comic books in like 3 months here. So I would assume that makes me qualified as a professional. I don't know. I go out.
You might have made too much money on comics then to be a professional.
Yeah, I know we're supposed to be starving artists and just hate everybody, right? And then I've had 3 science fiction bestsellers in 3 months over the summer. So maybe
Congratulations.
I'm a science fiction writer. And then I had Federalist articles go so viral. I've been on national radio and national TV. So I'm maybe a professional journalist. I don't know. I like
Yeah.
doing everything. I mean, I like the whole Renaissance thing, right?
So you are
I
a
don't know.
comic pro.
I didn't say that.
I'm so confused. I don't know how to box you in because you're not an expert.
I don't know what the definition of this shit is anymore, right? Can I say shit on here?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. The only thing I ask is that people don't say something that will get me demonetized because YouTube has a stupid list of naughty words that they don't like, and YouTube doesn't care about the context of those words. So
I got banned for one of those on Twitter for a week.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? It's how much power one word can have, especially if you're on the wrong side of history. Because I've noticed that one word, certain people can get away with quite a bit. Whatever word, what would pick your word, right? Put echoes around it if you need to. You say the wrong thing on it, and you're on one side of the aisle. You seem to get a little bit quicker banhammer action than people on the other side of the aisle.
That's really what bothers me. If we want to get into the legal perspective of things, the double standard that is upheld to people, and just like, I don't know, the way that some people can just get away with anything, and then I can just utter that I support Donald Trump, and therefore it gets me just spiraled out of control with a lot of these people. It's ugly, and it's like I'm trying to figure out on this Alt Hero Q thing, which I am not a part of Alt Hero Q. It's all Chuck Dixon. This is Chuck Dixon's idea. It's his book and all that. I'm not making any money off of that or anything like that. But just watching this and trying to interact with IndieGoGo, it's like, hey guys, what happened here? And I sent an email because I also work for the Federalist. This is this is on that front. It's like I got to know what this is because I gotta write something up about this because this is a big deal. And they just go, well, they violated the terms of service. And I emailed them again, and they said, how? And I said, how did they violate the terms of service? Because I've read the terms of service and I don't see anything. We're escalating this to another manager. Please be patient. So then I get another email. I just got one like about an hour ago. They violated the terms of service. It's like, okay.
Which term?
Right. Can you tell me specifically? And this is what this is how they do things. This is how they get this going every single time. And it's like they don't hold anybody else to this standard. If if our friends at Bleeding Cool or whatever release their own comic book, they've said a lot of incendiary things that a lot of people would be offended by, but they would never get taken down for this reason. So that's what bothers me, and that's why I do a lot of the journalism I do.
Yeah, so let's dwell on this Alt Hero Q thing for a minute, because I did want to talk to you about it. Obviously, we're going to get to the WorldCon thing and talk about that. That's kind of the original reason, but this is an intervening story that happened just yesterday. So Alt Hero Q, if you guys, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically a fictionalized fantastical world where QAnon is an actual superhero, right? Is that kind of what's going on there?
Sort of. It's there is no superhero in it. That's what Chuck wanted to do with this concept. So what's nice is I'm friends with these guys, so I get to see some of their behind the scenes stuff, which is amazing since he's one of my heroes. But basically Chuck actually just wanted to write a spy thriller and write a superhero or write a comic book that actually doesn't have superheroes for once, because he's kind of bored with superheroes because he does it all day long, every day. And not to say he doesn't love his superhero stuff, but he wanted to do something different because he's an artist, right? And so he wanted to write like a Jack Ryan or Mission Impossible style adventure. And so the QAnon is like this mysterious force in the background, while this like sort of Jack Ryan style spy is trying to like figure out what's going on and navigate his way through things. So that was really the onus of it. It's definitely fiction. And I thought he created a really wonderful character that was going to resonate with a lot of people, and it did. I mean, it raised $100,000 on IndieGoGo.
Right. So when it got shut down yesterday, it was over the $100,000 mark, because I've seen I've seen 70 and I've seen all the way up to 110. So I wasn't sure where it was. Kind of at the time.
I stopped looking at 103, so I don't know exactly what it was at. But I did a live stream, and I actually refreshed the page on IndieGoGo as they started refunding backers, and you would see it would drop like $25,000 every refresh.
Right.
And then it finally dropped to zero. Now, what was interesting about this, from my perspective, was that they didn't just close this down because they were offended by the Q concept or the alt concept. The word alt triggers people too, even though it just means
absolutely.
Even though it means alternative, right? That's all it means. I mean, that's why Alterna Comics exists. They're not an Alterna Comics is not an alt-right group. They're just an alternative, right? But that word really just triggers people these days, and I figured QAnon also triggers people these days. But that didn't impact here. You would have seen that in the first 48 to 72 hours if that would have been the case here. So what happened was this campaign was already closed. It was done. They were ready for payment. To my understanding, they actually sent out an email to the people in charge here that they were going to distribute funds to the tune of $100,000, like an actual email saying you will receive $100,000 about this date. So look for it. Yeah, I know, that's interesting, isn't it?
That might be really interesting, actually.
that might be more interesting than all. Honestly, that's the crux of any legal argument here.
Hey, IndieGoGo, if you're looking for legal representation, give me a call.
Holy crap, that was a bad. And they do this. IndieGoGo sends out an audit, because I've run a campaign. They send out an automated response saying you're going to receive X amount of funds, and they actually detail the exact dollars of funds in or around X date. And they do that just to, I don't know why they do that, but because
marketing hype. Do your next campaign with us too, especially if you made this much money, because you made us money too.
But that email, I mean, that's, when you're saying you're going to do that as a business, that is, at least in the United States, a pretty contractual type of thing. So it's a bad deal. For IndieGoGo. It's a good deal for Alt Hero Q. But yeah, it's a very, very bizarre situation.
Yeah. So now, nobody has the details on this. You're pretty close to it, and a journalist with Federalist, and your journalistic credentials aren't getting you the answers. So let's delve into some speculation, if you're willing. Sure. Here's a theory I've been hearing. So, that Alt Hero Q is published by Archaven Comics, right? Which is run by Vox Day. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. I'm making sure. Because if I say something wrong, I am happy to be wrong, please correct me. Because I just want to get the details down. So Vox.
I also want to just say again, I am speculating. I'm not involved with this project. I'm not an employee of Archaven Comics. And so this has no bearing on them whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. You are not an employee. Yeah. You do publish one of your comics under Archaven's imprint, though. Is that correct?
Yes, I will be. It's called the Ember War. It's the link's in the chat. It's the only Archaven comic that's up right now. If you want to support free speech, if you want to support the right for comics to exist, and especially if you want to support just a great comic, because I write really good comics. This is a sci-fi comic. There's nothing political to it. It's the same artist as Flying Sparks, so you're definitely going to enjoy that if you enjoy my other work.
So yeah, definitely, guys. In the description of the video, you can find the link to that IndieGoGo campaign. Check it out, especially if you have heard, as I have, that Jon only writes particularly political comics, or that his comics are somehow like Donald Trump or racist or pro Vox Day or whatever weird thing you've heard. Go give it a look for yourself and make sure that you're hearing the right thing, because what often happens on the internet is that people lie and people try to build false associations. And if you've seen it a week ago, someone tried to do that on my show as well. And I don't appreciate when people do that. I think Everyone's free to associate with and not associate with whomever they want. So don't let other people define someone for you. Go check it out for yourself, and certainly give it a look. Like I said, the link's in the description.
This is a Michael Bay movie with marginally better dialogue.
Ooh, not hard to do. Actually, I give Michael Bay a lot of crap, but I really do like Pain and Gain. I thought was a masterpiece.
Movies are fun, and there's lots of explosions. That's what we all want, right?
Right. Sometimes, I guess. I really hate him for Transformers though, and I'll never forgive him.
I liked the first one.
I didn't, but I was such a fan of the 87 series because I grew up with it, right? Like I was watching it every day as a kid, and so then to see it come out and is like, this guy doesn't even know, like he was messing with my playground, right? And
that's fair.
So I probably didn't give it a fair shot, although it did have some explosions and that stuff was kind of fun. I'm still annoyed at him for making Bumblebee perpetually unable to talk for the rest of time.
Yeah.
Like even in the new movie.
Megan Fox was so hot though. I mean, let's be honest.
She's an attractive lady.
Yeah. There you go. And that's why I say marginally better dialogue. I mean, it's very important to make that distinction, right?
Okay, so so to be clear,
sorry,
and get all no, that's what this show is really about, is tangents and derailment. So don't you dare apologize or I will throw you off the stream, young man. No, but what we were getting to is the basically the disclaimers. You have a comic coming out that's being published or using the Arcaven imprint. However, you're not associated with Alt Hero Q. You're not a employee of Arcaven, and so you're not associated with this IndieGoGo campaign. So all of this is purely just speculation. But
correct.
So here's what I've been seeing. And it's weird that I'm kind of wrapped into the timeline of events here. But basically, I did a stream on Friday, which was the 5th of October. So the 5th of October, I did a host
stream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So we had Ethan Van Sciver, of course, debating Jason Youngbluth, and
Ethan kicked the shit out of Jason Youngbluth. Let's clarify that too.
Yeah. Okay. I shouldn't have said debating. I'm sorry. I apologize to Webster. I've butchered that definition. No, so we have Youngbluth spewing off about something, and Ethan trying to politely educate him about how business works, and him just not getting it because, as best I can tell, he's a collectivist. Or some sort of socialist, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but just in discussions with him, he doesn't seem to understand that people want to spend money on things that they're after and that they desire, and that's a fine thing for people. So I'm not saying he deserves a helicopter ride, although he may. That's up to someone else to determine that, but. Because of whatever deficiency he had in his ability to understand, Ethan was trying to just say, no, this is, I'm doing this to make money. I'm trying to help other people make money. And we're trying to get comic books into the hands of people who want to read them without being preached to by some weird gatekeeping, Pope in Marvel or DC. It's like France and Rome, I guess, back in the day. We've got two popes, but they wield all of the authority.
We have a Pope fire. We have a Pope fire. So you're not deep into this, but
no,
I'm deep into the comics web, and
there's
a Pope fire who is the Pope of Starfire, and people worship that. It's just a thing.
You must be Episcopalians then in this scheme. No,
I'm do we want to go into religion on this?
No.
Let's get back to the topic.
I was analogizing because they have a papal hierarchical structure that's outside of the Catholic Church. That's all. It was a throwaway dad joke. So anyway, we had this debate on the 5th, where Jason spent the better part of 3 hours trying to attach Ethan to Vox Day. which didn't really make any sense to anybody. Now we've got on the 8th, I believe.
They fought pretty hard and got pretty nasty with each other. So that's a bizarre statement to make.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
They seem to be not on the best terms right now.
No.
But
I'll go on the record. I love both guys. I think they're great people. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. I have never had the opportunity to meet Vox Day in person or to have a personal conversation with him. So all I know are the mean things people say on the internet and some stuff that I've read. And I'll be frankly honest. I think some of the stuff that he has personally written, I have huge disagreement with. However, he may have, some sort of alternative motive or some context that I'm missing, and I'm fully happy to learn that. So if I ever get to talk to him, I'm happy to do so in a very, like a normal person way. But that's beside the point. So he spends like 3 hours trying to attach Ethan to Vox Day. No matter how much Ethan disavows it, he keeps coming back. And then even afterwards, he's like, see, I got Ethan to admit that he loves Vox Day and they want to get married. Which is a really, really weird position to take away from that debate. But on the 8th, if my timeline is correct, Bleeding Cool published an interview with Vox Day that's like 10 hours long. Oh
my God. So Vox and I talked periodically. And he actually talked about this like 2-3 weeks ago. I don't remember the exact date, but Bleeding Cool's been sitting on this for a while. So they hemmed and hawed over publishing this for a long time. And he told me at the time, he said, this is the longest interview I've ever seen. And I've been in politics and all that. I mean, he said, I'm not just joking. This is the longest interview I've ever seen. And I thought he was kind of exaggerating, or kind of aggrandizing about it at the time. And then I saw the freaking piece. I couldn't believe it. It's like somebody wrote a freaking book. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I admittedly haven't read it yet because I haven't had time. I looked at it and I was like, oh dear Lord.
The dude wrote a 3,000 word introduction. I mean, first off, I'm a journalist, so I write for the Federalist. I've written for Milo Yiannopoulos. I've written for a couple other periodicals.
Well, you're just ticking off the hateful roster.
I know. Everybody hates me. Whatever. So yeah, I'm obviously a homophobe because I write for Milo. I don't know how that works, and however that works, but right. But I've done all this, so it's like I've been around. You write about 1,500 word articles. That's about max. That's like the longest you try to put up from these pieces. So when you're looking at long pieces from Salon, if I don't know if your viewers read Salon, I hope they don't.
Don't.
Okay. Or whatever. Even Fox News, whatever it is. The max is going to be about 1,500, 2,000 words. The fact that they wrote a 3,000 word preamble, that's like a 2-article thing.
That's just a preamble.
Yeah, that's before they even asked a question to Vox. It's crazy. Like the obsession level is like this high with Bleeding Cool. It's very weird.
So they end up okay, so you're telling me that they did this interview a while back, have been sitting on it. They end up publishing it on the 8th. And then the Alt Hero Q IndieGoGo thing happens. It gets shut down. Then this
same day.
Right.
So that was within 12 hours. Within 12 hours. Mm-hmm.
And then what's interesting that also happens is that Bleeding Cool then pulls the Vox Day article right after the IndieGoGo goes down.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
it's very weird timing. And what I think, because I've had Bleeding Cool target me before. When I first came on the scene, I mentioned my first Federalist article where I detailed the Marvel Comics writers and how they all had anti-Trump stances on their social medias.
Right.
Can't do that. Before I got to the Federalist, I wrote it up on my blog, which is delarose.com. And I basically didn't write it nicely. Like you'll look at it, you can look at my blog where I wrote it just as a blog, and you can look at my Federalist article, and you can see the difference between like when I'm getting paid to write something versus when I'm just doing it for fun. It's a big difference. But I did it originally on my blog, and I sent it to Rich Johnston at the time because I was out of comics. I didn't know anything, but I remembered Bleeding Cool was kind of like a website that talked about comics. So I sent it in as like a tip to them. And Rich Johnston took my article, which just detailed all these Marvel writers and how they're just anti-Trump, anti-conservative, just like very hateful of anybody on the right, and how there's like blacklisting involved at the company. Now there's no representation of anybody of the other half of the country at the company. And Rich Johnston retitled it "How Not to Apply for a Job at Marvel Comics," and wrote this article. Like, I was a nobody. I didn't have a best-selling book at the time. I had like 200 followers on Twitter at this point, and I was just a fan of comics who like had one book out, and it was like he wrote this. And all the Bleeding Cool people came to my blog, came to my social media, and just started harassing the shit out of me. I'm just saying nasty things, death threats, all this stuff. And it kept going for months. Like, they didn't calm down. Like, they just kept going, and they kept on me for months. This crowd is like a real hate crowd at Bleeding Cool, and he commands them. So just based on my experience with that, I think that they came to IndieGoGo, they came to Alt Hero Q, and they kind of mass reported it and went Nazi, 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 right, supremacist. And because they just got so many at once, that's what took this down. That is my hypothesis.
Right. And to be clear, because we're getting some feedback on this in the chat, and I thought people knew this, but Archaven Comics is owned by Vox Day. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so we're not avoiding the issues, guys. We're not avoiding the issue that Archaven is owned by Vox Day. Archaven is, of course, the imprint that Jon is publishing his book under. Jon has openly admitted to knowing who Vox Day is, to speaking with him on very friendly terms. That's not anything that we're weaseling around. I assume that if I know it because I'm way out of the loop, that you guys do. So. Sorry if there was any sort of appearance of deception. I thought everyone knew that Archaven was owned by Vox Day. So be it known.
I thought that was a standard thing that everybody knows. So I wasn't worried about that. But very, very, very interesting with Bleeding Cool. I definitely think there is a hate mob there. And I think they definitely probably mass reported this campaign.
Yeah, and that seems to be something. I want to go back to that, but my moderator, because I have a moderator who moderates me, Clay Early, he has let me know that I did miss a couple super chats, and I was waiting to get to them, but I think he has an alternative. I think he has an alternative reason for getting me to read these. The first one is from Bagel Goose. It says, "Can we give Clay Early more power? He's earned it." So I think maybe he had a reason that he wanted me to read that super chat. And then Landon Mackinjames says, "Oh, Nick Daddy Senpai, law explain me harder." We'll see what kind of legal issues we get into here. But yeah, so sorry about that. Getting back to this though. So Vox Day owns Archaven. The timeline is, of course, debate on my stream, publishing of the Bleeding Cool article, takedown of Alt Hero Q, and then takedown of the Bleeding Cool article. Your speculation is that there's a mass flagging campaign. I think that much is definitely true. The question that I've seen kind of tossed about, or the speculation is, do you think that the so here's the inside info. You mentioned that Vox did this interview about 3 weeks ago with Bleeding Cool, right?
Right.
Well,
yeah, I got that information. Right.
So Jason Youngblood asked me to do the debate with Ethan Van Sciver. Gosh, I can look it up. I can look up when that was. Give me just a minute. What was the debate
supposed to be about again? Because I was confused by his just crazy rantings and.
So it's a good question. It's a good question. The debate was supposed to be, and Jason picked the topics, and this is interesting to me. He picked the topics. He said, the first topic is Comicsgate a racket? And I mean, I guess you can either go with the definition of what a racket is, and so that would be no, or you can go with your opinion of what a racket is, and that could be whatever, you know, that's going to really depend on how you define racket. I think his opinion is that it is a racket, and that's because somebody is making money. And again, I really think that this guy has just
terrible to make money.
Right.
Comic books.
Guys, just so you know, and we're being clear here, I am trying to make money by doing these YouTube shows. I'm hoping to entertain you, and I hope you want to purchase with your views, with your time, and with super chats, interaction, and all that stuff. I hope all of those things happen, but my ultimate goal is, of course, to make money while doing something fun. So if this is a racket, guilty as charged. But yeah, so
and I've gotten a couple donations for the Ember War on this stream, by the way. So thank you very much, and thank you to the audience who's supporting good comic books. 120 pages of great military science fiction. This is just fun with explosions, humanity versus aliens, just the type of stuff that we want movies and comics to be. So check it out. We're very close to funding. We're about $500 from funding now.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. Thank you for checking it out, and continue to do so. And if you don't want to do it during the stream, obviously check it out after the stream, but definitely do so. I ask any guest who comes onto my show, no matter where they are aligned with me or not, I offer them the opportunity to market their products, because again, I want everyone to make money. I don't want anybody shut down. I want everybody to make products that they think people will buy, and I want the people who want to buy them to buy them. It's a miracle, because that makes everything better for all of us if we're just doing that.
Beautiful. What a beautiful concept.
But so I hosted a previous debate with Ethan against a guy named Thomas Roylup, who ran a Tumblr blog that was criticizing webcomics. And that was on September 18th. And it was, just over 3 weeks ago. And it was, I believe, immediately following that, either that night or the next day. I may be off by like a day, but it was very close to following that interview that I got a message from Jason asking for the discussion with Ethan. And so Jason, the other topic other than is Comicsgate a racket, I forgot to mention, was has Comicsgate been infiltrated by the alt-right? So to him, later he clarified after the debate that to him, the alt-right, he literally put in parentheses, Vox Day. So has Comicsgate been infiltrated by Vox Day is what he meant. What he said was alt-right. So that was the debate topic. He asks me almost 4 weeks ago to do this debate. I said, my initial response was, my channel is not the Debate Ethan Van Sciver channel. So I said,
good response.
So I said, I'm not going to ask him right away. The guy is just gracious enough to come on my show and debate someone just because, and so I'm not going to just immediately bug him and hound him for debates with random people. But, there was a couple weeks had gone by. There was some drama that had happened. Jason was kind of vocal in that drama. So I said, hey, Ethan, I don't know if you know this guy, Jason, but he asked me to debate you a while back, and I was just kind of waiting for a time because I don't want to hound you with this stuff. And he said, sure. And then Jason sent me the list of topics, and I sent them to Ethan. He said, okay, great, and we did the debate. No thought about it. But now this timeline is really interesting to me, because that would have been around the time that Vox was doing the interview with Bleeding Cool. And then with all this random speculation, what I have heard people speculate is that Jason was trying to, either of his own volition or through some coordinated op or something, because the internet is full of ops now, it was trying to associate Comicsgate writers with Vox Day directly, presumably because there was this coordinated attack coming against Vox Day associated IndieGoGo campaigns. That's the speculation I've seen.
Now, what I heard at the time, and this is a few weeks old, was the opposite. Vox was kind of laughing at it because he said, they sent me all these questions about Ethan as if they're trying to get me to attack Ethan and trying to get me to just like crap on Ethan on their website. He thought that they wanted to get him divided with Ethan so that they could fight and so that they could kind of just suppress the comicsgate movement and suppress the indie comics being made, so that that it goes. And this is what I see SJWs do a lot. The SJWs have 3 tactics, and I talk about this. I want to write a book about this, honestly. I call it the 3 Ds, right?
Sure.
Destroy, deplatform, and divide. They try very hard to destroy any person. They will go off as hard as they possibly can. And then once they do that, they try to deplatform that person, right? And so they try to just push them off Twitter. They try to push them off YouTube. We've seen Ethan get attacked on YouTube and have some of his stuff demonetized and things like that. We've seen a lot of other Comicsgate people kind of in the same thing. Patreon was going after people for a while. I know Mitch Breitweiser was getting like his stuff flagged on Patreon, which is ridiculous. Nicest guy in the whole world, and has no problem with anybody. It's very bizarre. And then divide. So they also try to like put these wedges in between people. So like a big thing is like they always try to get me to attack Ethan, and it's like, I like Ethan. I don't have any problem with him, and I keep saying that, and I'm saying that almost intentionally, because it's like, I don't want that to be a thing, and I have no interest in attacking the guy. Like, I mean, he's always been cool to me, so there's no reason to do that. So it seems to be part of their tactics, so they can like keep any, like, because think about this in the global perspective. They have control of culture on every single level: movies, comics, video games, books. They've got all of it in control. So an indie movement comes along and takes away the slice of their pie that's even 1% of their pie. That bothers them. They want their whole pie, and it flips them out. So they want to do these things. They want to destroy anybody, and if they can't destroy that person because Streisand affects them,
right?
They then want to deplatform that person, and then once that doesn't work because there's alternative platforms and people can still get big and all that, they try to divide the fan base so that they don't support that person anymore. And these are the tactics of the SJWs. This is how they suppress culture. This is how they suppress counterculture revolutions that are coming up against them. And so all of us are kind of counterculture in our own ways. We're all independent people because we're not collectivists. We're all our own person and all that. But they really want to divide us and kind of make us hate each other and try to make us like lash out against each other. And the reason is because all of our fan bases overlap like 20, 30, 40%. And so if you knock that out of our bases, it really screws us and really hampers our ability to get a following. So that's the whole tactic here, I think.
Yeah, because if you overlap, if you have like a 20 to 30% overlap and you split that, then you're losing 10% of sales, basically 10 to 15% of sales from each person. From each person, it hurts everybody involved, and that's a way to win. I have a super chat to make sure I get to from Bagel Goose. Says, legally only Clay Early and I can make money, and this is a good opportunity for me to point out that I'm switching to this. I got this micro bottle of Tennessee Fire from Jack Daniel's because someone told me it was better than Fireball. Fireball whiskey, of course, being the cancer of all whiskey. Better when you're drinking. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Gimmick whiskeys, man. That's the name of the day. So
down that so you can catch up with me. The whole thing. Come on.
Hold on. I'm giving it a taste test first. It's not as sweet as Fireball. I'm going to pour it into my little goblet and let it breathe a bit. It's not as sweet as Fireball, which is good, but it does have that red hot feel. So I don't know. Hey, what do you want? Oh, you want some of this? Sorry, the wife's in the room. I promised her a sample of of this Johnny Walker Frozen. What?
A huge mess.
No, it's the condensation. Yeah. Get out of here. Sorry. This frozen bottle of liquor is sweating all over my desk, and she thought I spilled whiskey everywhere.
Yeah,
but
it's the bottle's fault.
Yeah, it's the bottle. It's me. All right, sorry about that. So anyway, this is better than Fireball, but it's the same. It's too sweet. Whiskey should bite, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I like the smoky kind of whiskeys. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't want to dox you. If you're ever in Nashville, this is a great.
You're in Nashville?
No.
Oh.
I'm not. I'm in central Minnesota. I'm very public on the internet because I'm attached to my law firm. My law firm's office is in Wilmer, Minnesota.
I'm in San Francisco, dude. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I've got cousins out there. How do you live through that without murdering scary. Everybody in the streets? Because
no, it's not that. I have, I've gone out in 2016. I haven't done it in 2 years because it's scary. I went out in my MAGA hat because I got my Make America Great Again hat, and I just tried to. At the time, it's like it was like, this is just an election. I can wear my hat. I've had beer bottles chucked at my head. I've had like a mob of drunk dudes chase me down a street. I've been assaulted twice, like in person, for wearing a freaking hat and not engaging people, just walking down the street. It's very scary out here. It's a very different ball game. A lot of people don't understand this, but Nashville is my favorite city on earth. I visit there annually. I go to a place called LibertyCon.
Okay.
It's a convention in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it's great people. You get kind of great right-wing science fiction authors like Larry Correia and Michael Z. Williamson. They actually have a range day ahead of the convention, so everybody goes out and shoots guns the day before the convention. And I spend a couple days in Nashville ahead of time because it's my favorite city on earth. I'm a big music guy, obviously, because I had a band before. And so it's, that place is just beautiful and I love it. So if there's a distillery, I want to check it out for sure.
Okay. Well, I got this stone little cup from Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga.
Chattanooga even. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you been up to Lookout Mountain? We went there over Memorial Day. So we were driving back from Florida. And we were like, oh, this will be a fun diversion for the kids. But it was Memorial Day weekend. So the line was infinity. So we just kind of walked around, bought a couple souvenirs, and then left. We didn't do the tour, but I want to go back because I hear it's not that busy any other time of year. But I got this stone whiskey goblet. And then, we were in Nashville. And when you're there next time, there is a distillery somewhere, but this is a restaurant. It's called the Peg Leg Porker is the restaurant's name and the bourbon's name. And it's,
I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's a barbecue joint. They do pork and chicken. They don't do beef, but they do the pork and chicken very well. And then they have an 8 and a 12-year, but the 12-year you can only get at the restaurant because I think they had a limited run.
Yeah, cool. We went up to Bowling Green in Kentucky and did distillery tours up there this year. It was super fun. So yeah.
I really do want to do that. It didn't work out on our trip because we were passing through, but I want to make it out to Kentucky and just tour around bourbon country and get trashed and make my wife drive or whatever.
That's what I did. Yeah. My wife doesn't even drink at all.
So you always have a DD.
Always. It's great.
So I have to address something in the chat. Eric Bieberbach says, my family lives in Spicer, Minnesota. Really? Because that's, of course, right by where I am. You'll have to tell me who they are. I'll go visit them with like threatening letters or something. And then just say, just kidding. But you should DM me and let me know who your family is. Because I may know them, or my wife probably does. She grew up around here. So anyway, getting back to, where were we? We were talking about, so we were talking about,
something like that.
About the 3 Ds of social justice.
Yeah. You like that? I came up with that myself.
Yeah, I do. And it seems very accurate. Oh, Curtis says Jon Arroz isn't, it's Del Arroz, sir. Still isn't a real author, TM Hoon.
TM Hoon. Oh, you're a Larry Correia fan. I love you, Curtis. Good job.
So, but yeah, we were talking about the 3 Ds. And that does seem to be, and it's the most frustrating thing to me on earth is this deplatform. It's the deplatform D that really gets me. Of course, the destroy and divide does too, just because it's like this weird underhanded tactic. We do enough to divide ourselves. We don't need people trying to insert division into it. But the deplatforming, because once someone is deplatformed, there's a recovery from destroy. Because people can try and take you down And you can always fight back with truth. You can fight back by being more engaging, by being, just by speaking to an audience who wants to consume your content. No matter how many people hate you, if you can find
By
people.
being Brett Kavanaugh.
What was that?
By being Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, exactly. by having a legendary eye roll at every stupid question. And by lacking judicial temperament, because apparently, guys, let me clarify something about Brett Kavanaugh. If you think that man lacks judicial temperament, you've never been in front of a judge, because those guys have such an inflated sense of self-importance that they
are mean.
They are brutal.
I've never met a judge that's not mean. Like, I mean, and they have to be, because they get, they have to deal with people like you, like, all day long.
Yeah, so, exactly. They have to deal with a million little egos. They have to deal with criminals who are horrible. Some of them are actually really like the actual terrible people who murder people and rape people and all that stuff. And then they have to deal with liars all day. So if you think that there's like a judicial temperament, Brett Kavanaugh, if he lacks it, it's because he didn't completely dress down any of the whiny little weasels who are questioning him. Because if you were to approach any judge that I've ever met in the way that they came at Brett Kavanaugh, you would maybe be in jail in a heartbeat, because you'd be in their house. But the other thing is, even if you weren't, and maybe he'd be polite to you in the courtroom, as a lawyer, he'd take you back into chambers, and they'd bend you over. And not physically, they would, with words, make you compelled to bend over. So, but yeah, so by being Brett Kavanaugh, by simply speaking and having a platform, he was able to combat this massive tide of just what appear to be false allegations against him. So same thing with Alex Jones for years. Was able to ignore all of the criticism by just being engaging and compelling to a group of people that was big enough to support him and allow him to continue doing what he does. But when you deplatform someone, there is no comeback. And the same thing goes with dividing, because if you divide two people, you divide two groups of people, as long as they have a platform, they have the ability to mend the bridge. They have the ability to come together. They have the ability to find a uniting event where they, maybe we disagreed on all of this stuff leading up to here, but now we're in the same boat, and we have a common enemy, and we realize that now they can make those amends. But if you deplatform, then there's no recovery. There's no recovery from being destroyed.
It's really hard. And the way everything's set up is there's, everybody, the kind of libertarian elements go, well, just start your own platform or whatever. It's a lot harder to do that.
It's not even possible.
It's not possible. Google gets government subsidies. We're on YouTube right now because Google gets funded billions of dollars and gets billions of dollars of tax credits from the government. And YouTube does not make Google money. It loses Google money. They don't care because they have that. You can't compete with that. There was a company that tried to compete with that, and they went out of business because the data storage is just way too astronomical to even, even with ad revenue and all that. It's the same thing with Facebook. Like, I mean, you can't get a competing Facebook. I mean, I know there's MeWe, they exist, but like you can't
never even heard of it
on there and all that. Right. And Facebook gets money from the government and all that. It's the same thing when you go to IndieGoGo or Kickstarter. It's like there wasn't an alternative that allowed free speech, that allowed right-wing personalities to kind of like raise money on there as a thing when they weren't, deplatformed and all that. And as soon as that happened, the credit companies, Stripe, deplatformed the company and ran them out of business so that they couldn't do it. So they do actually do this over politics, and they make it impossible to compete. And it comes back down to a lot of the banking regulations and things like that the government impose on everybody. So there is no way to actually just have a free commerce to where we can just have a free society. And frankly, I don't want to go too far, but Bitcoin is kind of the answer.
Yeah, and we see what they try to do to Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin starts getting popular. Bitcoin starts massively inflating in value, and then it wasn't the U.S., but South Korea basically deplatformed Bitcoin.
Right.
South Korea, by not accepting it on their exchange, took away a huge market. If you don't think South Korea has money, they're the new Japan, y'all. You've got South Korean products all over your house, all over your car, LG and Sanyo and Samsung.
Yeah, with the global market, we don't even have our autonomy really anymore in making these decisions. So
Right.
It's gonna get really ugly with the internet with China in a few years here, guys. So I honestly enjoy your freedom while you got it.
Right. And so Pizza Wolf says rackets for SCOTUS. Thank you. I accept your nomination, and I assume I will be approved immediately. Never mind the blackface. Panboy Lando Soy Child Dong Lover says, Hail Ro Kabir, Slayer of SJWs, both right and left. And William Foley says, Hoon. So
Hoon.
I don't understand it.
It's okay. This comes from comic, or this doesn't come from comic books. It comes from science fiction world. So these are inside jokes. People signaling to me who they are. So I appreciate it. And I love the Hoon.
I appreciate it too. Do more signaling. No. But what? Okay, now that's weird. Somehow liquor did just spill on my keyboard, and I didn't do it. Because I don't know.
I call hijinks there because there's nobody else in the room there from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been me, but I don't understand how. So that's really strange because it's over here. My drink is over here, and I drink here. So weird. Whatever. All right. So the deplatforming thing, and I've been talking about this a lot. I think I am not a guy who wants government regulation. At all. However, we don't. The idea of not wanting government regulation is because I want a free market, and we don't have it. Like you mentioned, Google gets huge government subsidies. All of the tech companies do, and besides that, they're built on the backs of backbone infrastructure that was put in through government money, through government favors, and through eminent domain, which took property from private people to at least allow easements for the government to dig a trench and lay a cable, and all of this stuff.
And that could get used big time.
Right. So we don't have a free market. So we don't have free companies making free decisions. Add that in, we've got regulations that protect platforms like Google and Apple and Facebook. I've been talking a lot about Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which was written in 1996 and designed because back in 1996, the owner of GeoCities couldn't police all the GeoCities pages that everyone was making, because he's just a guy or maybe a small company of people who...
I remember those days.
Right. It was just a small company of people, and you couldn't hold them liable for all the content that was being made by these independent people. But now we've got these big tech companies that have the technology and the staff to both have an algorithmic monitoring system and a real-time, real-person monitoring system. I didn't skip your super chat. Did I? I absolutely did not. Bagel Goose.
Our friend Bagel Goose. I actually followed on Twitter in the course of this chat. What did he say?
Oh, he's right. He's right. He called me out. He said, "When are you getting out the sexy lips, Nick?" And I'm don't think they're appropriate for this stream, so probably not. I have lips that are for jaw exercises. But Pizza Wolf also asked me how the mead was. It's still aging, buddy. I haven't done it, but here are the lips. The mead is still aging, Pizza Wolf, but I will be breaking it open soon because you told me to wait 6 months, so I've been really, really trying to do that. So I'm sorry, Bagel Goose, for missing your chat. But I appreciate you reminding me via another super chat. Zachary Smith says the DTs have set in. I don't know if that's Donald Trump's or death traps, but it's one of those. So section...
I got a message on Twitter from a follower of mine who says you and Nick are killing it. So
Oh.
I guess we're having a good stream.
I
Yeah.
hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. Cool.
But so Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. So yeah, it's written back when there wasn't the tech and there wasn't the manpower in tech to follow up with all of the content being made. But now we have Apple, Tim Cook, the gayest, whitest slave owner in modern history.
Wow, that is. Those are shots fired, dude.
Hey, he is openly gay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's up to him. But the reason I bring it up is because, you know, a couple decades ago, Tim Cook wouldn't be allowed to speak in public and was afraid to publicly come out as gay because of the discrimination and the vitriol that would come towards him. And now Tim Cook has come out and said specifically that he made the decision to take Alex Jones off of Apple. Okay,
Wow.
so Tim Cook personally, gay slave owning Tim Cook, personally made the decision.
Yeah, let's stop on the slave owning because, guys, honestly, that's a big part of this America First agenda that I'm a big part of. The Apple plantations in China really are. It is a slave operation. These people are treated like shit. It's awful. Nike, same thing, treated like shit. It's not right. It's not right. It's not free market. You know, it is just like dominating people, dehumanizing them, and making them slaves. It is a terrible thing. I hate this shit, and I want to see that change. That's a big thing for me.
Yeah, and FSPAMSS, whose name I'll never figure out how to pronounce, he wants me to get to the other slave owning part that I was talking about the other night, and I will. But I agree. Yeah, Foxconn's a disaster. The employees, when they're committing suicide from literally being forced to live where they work, they installed nets to catch them so they could go back upstairs. Like, oh, okay. So that's the compassion of Apple, and then what I was also talking about is the materials, the rare minerals that Apple uses, and all of the other tech companies to create phones. For example, specifically, I don't remember what the mineral's called, but it's what makes our phones vibrate and vibrate loudly. There's a particular mineral. It's only found in very rare places in Africa. And that mineral is very valuable. And the mining of it is done basically by trafficked people taken by warlords. And the warlords profit off of that. And there's no secret about this. And I mean, this has been, of course, going on since the diamond trade. This is not new in the world, certainly. But the reason I make fun of Tim Cook is because he knows it, and he's the one person, or one of the few people on Earth with the ability to change that. And he's here moralizing about Alex Jones saying things that people don't like. Like that, this is the comparison we have. One guy is ranting on the internet and some people don't like it or maybe are offended. Another guy is selling products made on slavery. And outright
cares, and nobody even thinks about it.
Not at all. So I
hate that. It's called the term for that is called selective outrage. And that's one of the things that I kind of speak out against a lot in my both my social media and my journalism. Like I think that's lame. I mean, it's hypocrisy at its greatest. And it's like, there are actual problems in the world and we actually need to address them. And I want to focus on those and I want to fix those.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. And personally, like I don't buy Apple products typically just cause I'm not a big fan of their ecosystem, but I have a Google Pixel phone. They use the same stuff. I wear Nike shoes. I get how capitalism works and all that stuff. But I can't stop them from doing that. I wish they would stop doing that and find another way. I think that we can. I think that capitalism can do that. But
Absolutely.
But the other thing is, I'm fine with it, but I'm also morally consistent. Whereas they will talk to me about mean words of people and try and shut them down, and never shut themselves down for their own actions. And that's where I find the real problem is in the double standard that you were just talking about. It just burns me up. So
that's I mean, the same thing with IndieGoGo here. To take it back to the topic, it's like
absolutely,
it's like IndieGoGo would never do this to somebody who's like making a communist. Honestly, there was a Kickstarter campaign that I know Ethan was making fun of it several months ago, and it was called like Punch All Nazis or something like that. And it was a comic book made by a guy. He's in my local area. I've actually met him before. And I confronted him on Facebook. I was like, okay, so next time we're at the comic shop together, are you gonna punch me? Because I'm a Donald Trump supporter.
Right.
And that's implied that Donald Trump supporters are all Nazis and that everybody should be punching them. Advocating violence over politics. And Kickstarter left it up, let the campaign go, let the campaign make money, and had no problem with it. Like zero problem with it. And Kickstarter is worse than IndieGoGo in this regard. Kickstarter didn't allow Richard Meyer's comic Jawbreakers, the Diversity in Comics, the big one that really got this whole train going. They didn't even allow it on their platform because they knew who he was, and they didn't want to be associated with that, and so they discriminated against him because of the perception that he's a right-wing guy and that they didn't want that on their website. So that happened on Kickstarter. That happened months ago. Everybody goes like, well, it's only happening to Vox. No, it happened to Richard Meyer. It happened to Diversity in Comics already. And people already forgot it because, that's the way the internet works. So these things happen, and there is a huge double standard. They'll allow straight up violent talk on the left, but they won't even allow right-wing concepts or right-wing people to even use the platforms. And that's how extreme the differentiation is.
Right. Christopher Allen asks, is he a gay slave owner or a gay, slave owner? And it's the second one. He is personally homosexual and also a slave owner. I don't know of any particular gay slaves that he owns. I mean, statistically, I can't rule it out. There are a lot of people I would consider enslaved in China at Foxconn, and there are a lot of people I would consider enslaved in Africa, harvesting minerals that are used in Apple products, as well as other places, right? Those are just two of the big ones. So statistically, I think there's got to be some in there, but I don't know that it's particularly important to him, the sexual orientation of the slaves that he owns and purveys and wields to make billions of dollars. But anyway, but back to the subject. Sorry. But this happened with Kickstarter. I think the big shock for a lot of people now is that this is coming from IndieGoGo, who of course has been the friendly spot up until now. And the question that I have, and of course we'll never get an answer on this, but since IndieGoGo has been friendly to comicsgate, to people who are on the right, who are not necessarily particularly associated with comicsgate.
I wouldn't say been friendly. I would say turned a blind eye up until this point.
Right, but when I say been friendly, I mean they've been willing to host or they've hosted the campaigns without shutting them down relentlessly. I wonder if Alt Hero Q is drawing particular attention, not from IndieGoGo, but we've been seeing this from Stripe, from PayPal, ultimately from MasterCard, from these payment processors who have been putting pressure on the platforms to drop people off of them. Like we had Jihad Watch, who was pressured by, I think Stripe told PayPal that they would no longer support any of PayPal stuff unless they Patreon unless they deplatformed Jihad Watch. We've had MasterCard doing this to the firearm manufacturers. We had Stripe, of course, do this to Alex Jones, as well as PayPal doing it to Alex Jones. That was following his deplatforming off of everywhere else. But we've got payment processors with no relation to the content, nothing implicating their company in anything other than, when you your credit card is processed by this company, and they process credit cards for everybody everywhere. But now they're starting to put pressure on other private companies and forcing them to enforce their moral standard, which that's what's really terrifying to me, because like you said, you've got all these dummies out there saying, well, just build your own internet, just build your own competing service. And you can't, because ultimately you'd have to build your own society that is outside of the global marketplace, right? Because you'd have to build your own, literally your own internet that's disconnected from other internets. Yeah. You'd have to have a physical location to do it. You'd have to build your own banking system. You'd have to have Galt's Gulch, like in a modern day sense. There's no way to do it, because if
it's unfeasible.
If the payment processor. Oh, go ahead.
There's no free market currently. That is the truth. There's no free market currently. You're 100% right. I don't think in this instance that Stripe put any threat onto IndieGoGo. I think it happened too fast from the bleeding cool, outrage train from the SJW crazies in comics to this. I think it was just like a straight report campaign, and then IndieGoGo took it down. But it is a real thing that Stripe does do this to anybody who tries to create an alternative platform, and it's intentional to try to stop alternative platforms from happening, so that the basically the right wing is silenced.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And the it's the scope of it is so baffling, because what people that I keep running into fail to understand is that it starts here. It starts with online payments. It starts with this. But not long from now, Stripe or MasterCard or whoever will be in charge of your grocery store payment, right? They already are in a lot of senses. You go to the grocery store, you pay by credit card. What if they force the grocery store to do a quick scan of your social media with this handy little program that they built? And if you've said any wrong thing, you don't get to buy food. And people don't believe that.
This really scared me with the quartering Jeremy Hambley. He's a YouTuber who was big into Magic the Gathering for a while. And I broke the story. I break all these stories, by the way. Like, I broke the story about Marvel, got that into the mainstream. I broke the story about ya boy Zach, about how all these guys were threatening him for New York Comic Con, and got that into the mainstream. So I've been on top of this. A lot of conservatives don't care about culture whatsoever. And so there's a very few of us who are actually trying to push this. And another one I broke was the Jeremy Hambley story with Magic the Gathering. And he was being harassed out of Magic the Gathering. And as a person who was making YouTube content and money off of Magic the Gathering, they deplatformed him. They said he can't come to Magic events. They canceled his account on Magic Online. They took his property on Magic Online, which were his cards. And it was a very scary thing. And they said, well, it's because you post, Pepe the Frog memes on the internet.
Right.
And it's like, holy crap, this is insane. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen. And it's up there. I mean, there's been a lot more. This alt hero taking down might be more insane. But that's up there in terms of one of the more insane things I've seen happen on the internet, and one of the more scary things happen on the internet. And I really wanted to make sure that he got out there. And so I posted it up, on these journalist websites, and broke the stuff to the media. And, there's one thing. It's like, the conservatives got to start caring about this stuff. They got to start caring about culture a lot more. And they got to start paying attention to this stuff and supporting the people like Jeremy who, get targeted by this stuff. But on the other front, it's like, we almost need the government to take notice and be like, okay, these timeout, things are not being applied in the internet realm in the same standards and it's over political affiliation. We have to come up with a solution to deal with this. And it hasn't gotten to that extreme point yet. And I don't know what it's going to take to get it there. It's like, this stuff is hurting actual people, and they still don't seem to care.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think it's going to take, you've got a couple options. You've got the court option, which is that's a long road. I talked about this the other day in a video. I reviewed an old case from 1946, which is Marsh versus Alabama. Fascinating case where that was back when manufacturing companies would own a whole town. They would own every piece of property, and they wouldn't They would
Right.
lease the housing to their employees as part of their compensation package, so they could pay them less, but they could give them a place to live. And it sounds bad, and company towns are not a good thing. They have too much. They had too much control over people's lives, but they made sense in the context of people coming back from war and not really having the resources to buy a bunch of houses and stuff like that. Whereas companies had been sitting there, basically manufacturing and making money during the war effort, and not having much to invest it in because they didn't have much capital investment going on. Of course, it wasn't really until the boom of the 50s that followed that we really started to see that kind of balance back out. But Marsh versus Alabama reasoned that since they owned the entire town, it was a Gulf Shipping, they owned the entire town, they could prevent a Jehovah's Witness from passing out pamphlets on the sidewalk. And the court ruled against them and actually said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that because just because it's private property is not enough of a reason for us to infringe free speech. The court used to think this way, and we've gone away from that. But I think we're getting back to a point where we can start making arguments that places like Facebook and Twitter actually do own enough of the public communication sector
It's
privately.
the public square. It's the
Right.
modern public square. We're not gathering at the town square for our like monthly, fiddle dance or whatever at this point.
Right. And
We're gathering here. This is where we are talking out issues right now.
And city council meetings, city council meetings happen, but the precursors, the thing that builds city council meetings, are happening in groups on Facebook. They're happening on Twitter. These small communities are actually carrying out the traditional role of governance, whether personally messaging people about local issues that are important, or by actually creating township groups and saying, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to talk about this stuff, but you can talk about it here now and start fleshing out these ideas. The public square has moved to the home, and it's done so through these social media companies who we already covered how much, they're getting so much government assistance and liability protection. So I think there's some hope for an argument through Marsh versus Alabama. We've got to get some lawyers who aren't horrific liberals, or if they are horrific liberals, there are good ones. There are good people who are horrifically liberal who still believe in freedom, who might be willing to start making these arguments. But that's a long road. The other way is Congress, and we've got to start repealing some of the protections for companies who are actively policing the content. They're publishers, or at least distributors. They're not these liability-free entities anymore. But I've got a couple chats to go through. Pizza Wolf says, this is my second favorite show on the internet. Thanks, buddy. I don't know what your first favorite show is, but I will work to destroy it.
Probably PewDiePie.
Panboy Lando Soychild Dong Lover says, please ask Jon Del Arroz if he is a right-wing SJW. Are you a right-wing SJW?
A right-wing SJW. What a stupid concept. I mean, the SJW is for social justice, which is a communist concept. So there's no such thing as a right-wing SJW. That doesn't even compute. It's almost like somebody's just trying to use a term that, because it's rhetoric, and
Sure.
then trying to ape it because they're like an NPC and just regurgitate the information. So it doesn't make sense.
But let me counter challenge with a very charitable read of that phrase, and thinking on to Vox's book about SJWs. SJWs always lie. SJWs double down. I haven't read them, but they were heavily discussed last Friday. And then you were talking about the 3Ds of SJW. So if we take out the social justice context, of the communist context, which I fully agree with you on, by the way. And that's where we saw it come out. And I was listening to Glenn Beck as he was talking about it being a code word and a dog whistle for just overtly socialist and communist thinking. This was probably 7-8 years ago. He was really,
that's the whole concept of, quote, social justice.
Right.
We as people who care about the law and care about, actually maintaining America, we're about justice. But social justice is about a mob mentality ruling over things in order to like shame people into certain behaviors. That's what social justice means.
Sure. But if we take out the social justice aspect of the question and we simply rephrase it or retool it to be, do you employ the tactics of social justice warriors for the purpose of advancing a right-wing agenda as opposed to a left-wing agenda? How would you answer that?
I don't have any control of any platforms, so that doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a fine answer. All right. So Maddie P on the road says, would you treat me right in your company town? Of course, buddy. I would treat everybody right in Racketsville.
Maddie gave you $2. I mean, $2 it goes a long way in Nicktown.
Yeah, that and there are no taxes. There are no taxes in Racketsville, so it's all free market, and you just paid the cost of entry, buddy. But yeah, so let's move on to we've talked about Alt Hero Q and the censorship, kind of theorized about what may have happened there. Let's talk about WorldCon. And I'm going to preface this to the chat. We talked about this beforehand. We're not going to get into anything about the lawsuit with WorldCon that would potentially be compromising to the claims. We're just going to talk about, on this stream, we're going to talk about basically the events that led up to it, what happened. I'm not super familiar with it yet. And then what I would like to do in a separate video is I will probably do a breakdown independent of Jon and kind of lay out the legal case. That way he's not on any sort of hook for anything either of us might say. Because like I said, it's hard to compromise yourself on some of these cases, but we don't want to risk that territory. So we're going to talk about the events leading up to it, the premise of the lawsuit, what the basics are, and then I will do an in-depth breakdown at some later time when I can adequately review the documents, kind of what how this channel started. So, so if you can help me walk through the events leading up to this WorldCon lawsuit, I would really appreciate it.
So I was basically in 2016 on, I think, 2 days after Election Day, warned by my editor for the publishing house I was working for at the time that because I put on my Donald Trump hat and was happy about the election results, that I would be blacklisted from the science fiction publishing industry, that it goes around, that people see my, quote, behavior, and they're not okay with that, and et cetera. And so I saw that going on. I got really, really frightened at the time. And then a lot of my friends from the industry kind of just like dropped off and just like kind of abandoned me because science fiction's, if you think comics are left wing, like science fiction publishing is so far left wing, you guys haven't even experienced it yet. Comics is just on the way to it. It's just like it's just starting, guys. But so that happened in November 2016, and in that I kind of got popular over the course of the Federalist, over the course of my coming out about my Trump support and all that. So like the next like 6 months.
Was it hard to come out to your family?
No, my family. I didn't come out to my family.
No, it's
right. It is honestly. I posted this up as a post on National Coming Out of the Closet Day a couple of days ago. Let me see if I can find my post because I think I put up a brilliant post and it got shared a couple hundred times. So I think other people liked it too. But I mean, this is the crux of it: is I came out of the closet as a Trump supporter and as a Republican and as a Christian in late 2016, and the extreme left wing that controls the establishment publishing couldn't handle it, and so I kind of just got more vocal about that over time. In February, I was no longer invited to a local convention that I used to speak at annually for 5 straight years called BayCon, and BayCon just stopped inviting me suddenly, and I talked to people and they said, well, it's because you're known that you supported Trump and we can't deal with this and blah blah blah.
You supported Trump. It is known.
Yeah, it is known. I know,
known.
terrible, horrible. And people lost their shit on me, and the programming director was a friend of mine before that. But she started going off on like Trump's a rapist and stuff like that, like just the crazy out there lines. and around this point. So I actually wrote a blog about it, and I said, I didn't name names. I just said, hey guys, Baycon used to invite me. They're not inviting me anymore. It's over my Trump support. Let's leave politics out of conventions and just have like fun. Let's just talk about science fiction and Star Trek and Star Wars and just have our fun time and like just leave the political stuff out of it, because it's no fun for anybody. It just brings everybody down. It just divides people. It's just not a good thing. I wrote a blog that literally just said that, and they lost their shit. They went on saying I was a liar, that I was never disinvited from the convention, that I was never intended to be invited to the convention. Yeah, I mean, just things like that. And they just kept going over and over again. Well, I got the lady on record, and her Facebook post on the matter said, Jon wasn't disinvited for his politics. His behavior over politics is another matter. So it's because I spoke out and said something. If I was just quiet about it and I shut my mouth like a good little houseboy conservative, then I guess I could have been still invited. So that went along. The Federalist then blew me up over this article once I got big there. I continued to write for the Federalist. I've written 10 plus articles for them now, and gotten on national TV and stuff like that through them. My books blew up in the meantime also. So I just kept getting bigger, and my platform kept getting bigger over the course of this. Well, WorldCon is like a moving convention. It's the big science fiction convention. It moves around from city to city year after year, and it has the Hugo Awards, which are the big awards for science fiction. This was coming up, and it was going to be in my hometown. It's in San Jose, which is about 40 minutes from where I live. Sure. And I was like, wow, this is cool. So I was trying to get a bunch of conservative authors to come out, and we were going to rent a table and sell our books and actually just be there just to be present and be like, we exist. You can talk to us. We're going to live stream just some conversations about books and stuff like that, because our books are all kind of apolitical and we're just kind of doing our own thing while the left is really hammering the social justice message in all their books. We're trying to just make science fiction fun again. And this is what we're doing. And I was going to rent a table. Well, in September, the issue with Richard C. Meyer came out with New York Comic Con, where these comic pros were conspiring to like get him framed for a crime, to goad him into violence so he could never attend conventions again. And what happened was a lot of conservative authors who were going to come with me backed out of the convention. And this sounds like a lot of backstory, but this actually matters.
Right.
And so I emailed them after all this. I tried to plan it for a couple more months. Nobody wanted to come anymore. Nobody wanted to come to WorldCon because they thought it would be literally physically dangerous for them to show up in this environment. And honestly, they're right because of what we knew about Richard Meyer.
Right. And of course, what Jeremy Hambley experienced.
Right. Well, this happened a year later, right? So
right.
we were that definitely like justifies our fear because it's happening. People are actually throwing punches now. Yeah. But at the time we were just worried about this. So I wrote an email to WorldCon. Should I read my actual email?
Yeah, if you want to pull it up, let me read this chat from GR People first. GR People says, I never understand why Vox never does this stuff himself and instead uses Jon Del Arroz as his little lapdog to take the beatings. And if you'll let me, I would like to address this super chat because I did not ask Vox for an interview, and Jon did not ask me for an interview. I invited him on after we had a brief Twitter conversation. So
yeah, we talked about WorldCon. This had nothing to do with Vox. So.
Right. So there was no whatever your opinion of Vox may be. This was not any sort of intermediary. We had a completely separate conversation about that, and then I said, "Hey, Jon, would you like to be on my show?" Once he mentioned the WorldCon lawsuit that I had not heard about. So I would certainly talk to Vox Day on this channel, absolutely, because I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to whatever spectrum of person there is, so long as they'll respect enough of the rules of YouTube to not get me thrown off. I will talk to whoever, but that's not the case here. I reached out to Jon and invited him on this show, so there's no proxy anything happening, unless you think that Vox is smart enough to have manipulated me into asking Jon on my own, which I don't think
that's
happened.
That's pretty Bond villain right there.
Yeah. Oh, we did have two more come through real quick. So I do want to get to the email, but if I get these now, we're at a good stop point.
Let's
So
do it.
Ryan English says, "Hey John, I have a fantasy novel with Wordfire and another coming soon. Any tips on publicity? I'm not sure I have the time for a self-funded convention circuit, and that's all I've seen people do."
Yeah, I'm actually very good at publicity. So I come from a business school background. I come from the Haas School of Business at UC Berkeley. So and my
Wait,
my
you're a
typical-
Berkeley graduate too?
100%, dude.
How did they
Yeah.
go wrong? What did they do?
I know. Dude, like, I mean, people don't know any of this shit about me. So, I mean, business and marketing is my like main deal. I'm very good at this stuff, and it doesn't, the book thing's just kind of like I'm doing it on the side for fun. But I can utilize some of the stuff I know what to do because I've been trained in this.
Could I
now, sure.
could I do this? I'm gonna let you finish. But can I know Ryan. He's a buddy of mine. Can I hook him up on DMs with you or something, and you could give him some pointers?
That might be the best way to handle this because this is like an hour-long conversation. Yeah,
and we should do this conversation because what I want to do, and this is a side pitch for you, and you'd probably be a great person to have. I want to get a panel of creators who are out there doing this. I'd like to have EVS. I'd like to have your boy Zach if possible. I think I'd like to have you on here, and I want to talk about how I want to have Dick Masterson on as well. If I can get him to talk in a business perspective rather than his online persona, because I've been seeing this trend where we've taken insular micro communities online, and they have disrupted traditional markers of success in marketing. Like we've got, of course, Vox Day had some interesting results with, was it the Hugo Awards? Or one of the big literature awards. We've had, if you're not familiar with the Dick Show, I would encourage you to check that out, but it's a podcast, and they had 2 or 3 Billboard charting comedy albums. One of them being called Santa Cuck, Cuxmas Carols, which was Christmas carols rewritten with the word cuck to make fun of Maddox, an online satirist. And this is a Billboard charting album, and it's all because the way that insular communities can motivate groups of people to break these traditional markers. There's another guy online with a very small YouTube channel, but by picking a proper category to publish a ridiculous book on Amazon, he was able to get a #1 bestseller in some tiny obscure category.
Totally.
And so
It's doable. Doable thing.
I would love to have a panel discussion with guys who have been doing that, with guys who know about marketing, to talk about and provide almost like a boot camp quickly for people to figure out how you start to leverage these things. It does take work. I mean, you have to build a community, you have to build a presence, but I
think it'd probably be better for me to talk to Ryan offline. I'm happy to do that. I actually love Wordfire Press. It's run by Kevin J. Anderson. He's a good friend of mine. I'm big into those guys. Those are good people. So if Ryan, if you're published by Kevin, you're a friend of mine off the bat, 100%.
All right. So I'll make sure you guys can chat off stream, and then keep in mind the panel thing I pitched, because once I can start putting together kind of an agenda, I would love to do that. Because that's a topic that's been fascinating me lately. And I got one more quick chat, which is from Bagel Goose. It says, "Death of Jesus equal Jewish conspiracy?" And I think the follow-up question would be the resurrection of Jesus being Jewish conspiracy. But the other Jews. Now I'm an avid Christian and fully believe in the resurrection, but that's the interesting question, right? Was there something at work here? But anyway, I assume you've got the email.
I think it's very clear that the Jewish people are the chosen people of God, and so I respect that.
Perfect. All right, so you've got your email pulled up, right?
I do. I've got that now. So here we are. So I wrote an email at this point, and I said, "Hi, Kevin." Kevin is the chairman of WorldCon, Kevin Roche. He's definitely a radical left-wing activist, has had ties to extreme left-wing activities, and he is in charge of WorldCon at the same time. And I said, just following up here, after talking to a lot of the guys, there's a lot of serious concern for safety just with the way this year has gone. Many have bowed out of the idea of attending, and I'm on the fence myself. I've had some folk from SIFWA, that's the Science Fiction Writers Association Guild, dox my children on the internet and send unsolicited packages to my house upon finding my address. And that happened. I got doxxed after and my little kid, who was 7 years old at the time, they posted his medical information on the internet and started just harassing me with it to try to scare me.
Well,
when I
that's
posted
nice.
an article. Yeah, it was very scary stuff. That was the worst. I have to say that's the worst moment of my life. I mean, I was so scared at that point. And I also got an unsolicited package to my house, which was filled with dick confetti. So like it just showed up at my house. Yeah,
terrifying to get a package that you have.
It's funny now. I mean, you see that, but like you open a package and some shit explodes at you. I mean, you don't know what's in it. It's fucking scary. So that's what happened at the time, and it was because of these left-leaning people in the science fiction publishing industry attacking me. I said I wish it were a bit different, but it looks like conventions might not be a spot where conservative authors can attend safely anymore. And then 2 days before I was banned, oh no, this was the day I was banned. So they banned me. They wrote me an email about that, and I wrote him back personally because they wrote on their website that they were removing racist bullying elements from their convention. And I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm 100% Hispanic, so I think definition wise that means I cannot be racist. And I'm definitely not a bully because I have no power. So I'm getting bullied definitely. And I actually said to him, Kevin, I tried to work this out because I always try to talk to people first. This is my 100% thing. Like there's some people in the chat who are saying mean things to me pretty consistently here. I attempted to talk to them. If you look at my DMs on Twitter, I actually attempted to talk to these guys. And I wish we could work things. I'm sorry that they don't like me, but whatever. Same thing with this guy here, who's just a radical leftist wanting to harass me out of the industry. As you are aware, people were attempting to harass me. You said nothing. You didn't reach out. And then you took this action because some people actively want to do harm against me. It's not a good look. Call me and talk. I'm available. This isn't right. Stop the political stuff. Here's my phone number. And I got no response to either of those messages, either the concern about conservative people in the who were concerned about their safety at the convention, or this message. So they don't take the safety and concerns of conservative people seriously whatsoever. But as soon as like there's a left-wing cause to go for, they'll go and just like shout somebody down, publicly, which is very, I mean, it was hurtful. It was destructive of my career. The fact that WorldCon did this, because WorldCon's such a big name in all this, is a big deal. This is real harm to me and my ability to ever get published by any real, sort of establishment publishing house again. And WorldCon basically said it's okay to discriminate. Let's go. And that's kind of my perspective at this point. So this went on over time. They never said, they told me it was very similar to IndieGoGo here. In email to me, they just said I was intending on violating their terms of service.
They said you were intending on violating?
On violating the terms of service. They didn't say how or how they knew I was intending. They just said I was, and they said this is not appealable. This is final, and that's it. And we will not explain ourselves. Just like IndieGoGo is doing to the All Hero campaign.
Right.
This is how they handle it. It seems to be the way they do this.
Yeah, that's been common language I've seen lately. Is the this is not appealable.
Right.
It's like, wait, what do you mean it's not appealable? This is our final decision. It's like you didn't make a decision. You decided something, but you didn't actually do anything that would lead you to that decision-making process in any logical way that we understand. So, man, what a...
Right. Intending. And so that's really tough, because how can I prove what I'm intending or not? You can't. And then they also went further and said, this was a fun part that we're using definitely in the suit. They said that if I showed up, I will be removed from the premises. So they actually implied that if I just showed up at a convention center, which is city property, in public city property, that they would remove me from the premises, which is like a threat of physical force. So at least in my opinion. So very, very interesting way they dealt with this. And, I think it's clear political discrimination because they never elaborated. They never said any, what this was about. The only thing on their website just says that they're removing racist bullying elements from their convention.
Right.
So I guess that means to them, they say I'm a racist bully. I feel like they have to prove that because if they're making that kind of extreme allegation as a big public thing like WorldCon, that really hurts me personally. So if they can't prove that, and I don't think they can, by being a Hispanic guy, for one, and by never, advocating anything against any sort of race or anything like that, and my never really bullying anybody because I have no position of power, they're going to be hard pressed to prove that. It definitely is over my Trump support and my being a vocal conservative person and personality within the media, and that's our case we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a chat here that I want to address, and then I want to get back to the lawsuit because I want to talk about the way you're able to bring this is actually kind of interesting. It's because it's California that you actually have.
Thank God for California. We're
so
tolerant and diverse. We're very tolerant and diverse here.
Absolutely. So Dick Nutley says, catching up on the Dick Show, maybe between you and Doug, he means Doug Tinniple, I believe. He said, we'll convert Dick, or at least maybe get him to marry 80s girl. God bless. God bless you, buddy. God bless you back. Maybe. I don't know if Dick is convertible, but if he is, he's probably like a Toyota Camry. That was rude. I'm sorry, Dick. I didn't mean that. You're not a Toyota Camry. But anyway, so they've said basically that you're a racist bully.
Although I'm calling that defamation.
Right.
That's a part of this.
Right. And they've said that you intended to violate their terms of service, which outside of having some sort of email or something like that would be hard to show.
Right.
But
now the speculation that the left said is I made a tweet saying that I was going to have a body cam on me in case somebody came up and attacked me or something like that.
Sure.
Because I definitely thought somebody was going to come up and attack me at the convention. And I was worried about that for sure, and that's why I sent that email to begin with, trying to see if they
body cam a violation of the TOS.
No, so that became the theory that I was intending on recording. And that's not permitted, but it says on their code of conduct directly, recordings are permitted.
Okay, so yeah, that's not it then.
No.
All right. So the reason, so this all happened in California, and that presents kind of a unique opportunity because California has something called the UNRRA Civil Rights Act.
UNRRA.
Okay. I'm too Minnesotan for this Civil Rights Act. It's the UNRRA Civil Rights Act, and in it is a particular provision that is unique to California as far as I can tell. I don't know of any other state that protects political opinion as a protected class. But California does, and the backstory on that is it all comes down to, quote-unquote, the gays back in the 60s. Back in the 60s, the gay community...
We're very tolerant and diverse here in California. Yeah.
Right. And back in the 60s, the gay community was, of course, did not enjoy the same level of rights that they enjoy now. And as part of that, and to encourage and foster the gay community to be open about who they were and to not be discriminated against, California enacted a political opinion protection to protect people advocating for gay rights, both who were gay and who were not gay, but who were quote unquote allies of the gay community. So that's kind of the history of the UNRRA Civil Rights Act, is that it was originally instituted to allow people to advocate for rights of who we would consider underprivileged minorities. And since sexual orientation at the time was not a protected class, they wanted to, I believe it wasn't, but even if it was, they wanted to allow allies of the gay community to advocate on their behalf. And there was a fear, and actually I believe some evidence that people who were advocating for gay rights would be fired from their jobs and stuff like that. So California implemented this political opinion protection, and then it is, of course,
this has a secondary element to that, is that they wanted to protect public protests.
right.
So they wanted to say that people gathering, even if it's at a private location like a shopping center owned by, say you owned a shopping center, that happen to have like a supermarket in it or something like that. They wanted to protect people going there and like, doing their like, Salvation Army raising money, or going out there and doing a union protest or something like that. And not having you throw them off their property, right?
Exactly.
So they wanted to protect that from happening. So they said the public square, this is where people gather. This is where people talk. This is where people hang out. This is a public place, even though it's private property. So even if you own a shopping center, a mall, a movie theater, a baseball stadium where everybody's gathering, like people have the right to gather there. The people have the right to express their opinions there, and that's what this is about. And of course, it's great intentions. It's intentions to allow people to have discourse, and intentions to allow people to have different things. And so this gets very interesting on a city convention center that's city owned, where they're having a convention that's open to the public, that any public person can buy tickets at. Right. So it is a public gathering for an event, and therefore political speech and political protest is a protected thing at this event.
Right. And what's killing me from a legal standpoint is just the glory of this being this bill, the Unruh Civil Rights Act, being a very left-wing bill when it was implemented, now starting to be utilized by people on the right. First, you have, not first, but first in the public eye, you've got James Damore filing his lawsuit against Google, and part of that is based on the political protection that came about in the Employment Act and through this Unruh Civil Rights Act. You've got Alex Jones suing PayPal in California under the same theory that his rights are violated, his political right to a political opinion is violated under the Unruh Civil Rights Act. You've got you suing WorldCon. I'm sure there are others out there, but now it is being, and this is how law should work, right? You don't pass a law. You may pass it with the intent of protecting one particular group of people because that's the pressing issue at the time. But then the way it's got to be applied for it to be a valid exercise of law is it has to be applied to everyone.
To everybody.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I love that.
Yeah, I have defamation on that point. And because they actually threatened via email to throw me out, there's another California law. It's called the Bain Civil Rights Act. Bain. Yeah.
We will throw you out of the convention.
Yeah, which I love. I mean, it's just ironic that it's the Bain Civil Rights Act, and I'm now, really good friends with the creators of Bain, Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan, who did the cover art for my Ember War project, which is in the links below. So if you like comics, please go back the Ember War, back Bain, back Graham Nolan, who's a great artist. So that's there. And this is the Bain Civil Rights Act. And because of that, it says the Bain Act provides protection from threats, intimidation, or coercion, and attempts to interfere with someone's state or federal statutory or constitutional rights. Ooh. So if I have a constitutional right, the rights include association and assembly, due process, education, employment, equal protection, etc. So if I have a right to be there under the Unruh Act, which is a civil right, then their threat to throw me out is intimidation and coercion and a threat in an attempt to interfere with me exercising those rights. So there's another Civil Rights Act that, because they actually attempted to physically throw me out, and I actually have it on camera because I actually showed up at WorldCon and attempted to buy a ticket, and they actually escorted me out of the property on video on a live stream. And they did this, and I asked them why, and they wouldn't tell me on camera. And then I mentioned that I believe they're doing this because of my political affiliation. this falls under the Bain Act for my civil rights also. So there's a lot of really obscure laws in California that are protecting people, that are helping citizens against this kind of thing. And now that the class that is discriminating is in 100% power over all these institutions is the extreme left, people who are right wing actually have some recourse, for getting hurt and injured by these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I personally am really glad to see guys like you, guys like Damore, guys like Alex Jones standing up for this stuff because, people undergo discrimination all the time. And when you're some sort of, we'll say a designer privileged class, right? You're the in vogue privileged class,
right?
And your rights are discriminated against. You will have any number of social organizations coming to foot the bill for the lawyers and the legal fees and all of that stuff, which are very expensive, as I'm sure you know. But we don't, when you're not the champagne crowd's pet project, then you have to fund it yourself. And that means that if you're not politically groomable or whatever, then you're often the everyman is left out because the legal process is far too expensive, especially on one of these civil rights type cases. You just can't afford it. No one can afford a civil rights case unless you're wildly successful, or you have help, or you have independent streams of income. But the average guy can't do it. So I love that guys like you are out there doing that. Whether or not you win or lose, even the very idea that we're fighting back is monumentally important. That people know that not everyone has given up, and it's not because we've given up, but it's because that it's inaccessible to most people.
This escalated. I mean, so I was the first one, and I told people at the time, because people always do this thing with the right wing. Well, it happened to Alex Jones, but it won't happen to me because Alex Jones is just an extremist, right?
Mm-hmm.
This happens, and what happens is they do these things as test cases, right? They watch these. They watch to see if there's any repercussions or if there's any problem with doing it, and then they push harder. So the IndieGoGo with Alt Hero Q is a test case. You look like you're having a bad time right there.
Okay, let me read you something.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt.
No, you got it. I mean, your face has to.
Here we go. White Walker by Johnny Walker is a blended Scotch whiskey. I normally only drink single malts, but I figured for this special occasion. Inspired by these chill-inducing walkers. At the heart of the blend are single malts from Cardew and Clynelish, one of Scotland's most northern distilleries. This whiskey is chill-filtered to 1.5 degrees Celsius and best served cold directly from the freezer. Featuring notes of caramelized sugar and vanilla, fresh red berries, with a touch of orchard fruit. This whiskey, this is the important line. This whiskey develops in complexity as it warms to room temperature. Replace that line with, it developed in garbage. This is, keep it cold, y'all. It's hiding the flavor by being cold, because as it's coming to room temperature, this tastes like, wow, this is revolting.
I ran out of alcohol about 15 minutes ago, so I've been kind of just like sitting here like shit. So I'm jealous. I'd rather have shitty alcohol at this point than no alcohol. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll get the job done, but it won't be pleasant going down. So I apologize for stepping in there.
No worries. I mean, this is important stuff, So what was I saying? I was talking about just kind of like the it can't happen to me factor, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody is, a few people have said, that, and to some of the bigger creators have voiced, this is a very scary thing and this is a bad precedent, and we're very, we're watching this because this is not a good thing for any of us. But they, a lot of people still say this can't happen to me. Alex Jones is just a crazy, right? Fox Day is just an extremist, right? Jon Del Arroz, he's just what am I?
Okay, I have to ask, since we're on the topic, are you an ethno-nationalist?
I don't know what that means. I'm a Hispanic guy, so I guess
I keep seeing ethno-state, And I assume, I don't know if, I know Vox has written, and I don't know what he has written about it. Cause again, I just don't know. I've barely been exposed to Vox. I saw him in an interview on Stefan Molyneux like a couple years ago. Other than that, I don't know anything about him, but, someone keeps saying ethno state and that the ethno state won't work. And
I don't know.
Is that something that's not something
I don't have a problem with states like Israel or Japan. I think they have a right to exist, and actually rather like Israel or Japan. They're good allies of the United States, and I support them. So I does that answer the question? I guess it does for me.
I guess so. So what you're saying is that conceptually, there are ethno states that you don't have a problem with.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, okay. I don't think that makes you evil.
If you have a problem with Israel because they're ethnically Israelis, that makes you a racist, in my opinion, right? So I definitely support them. But that's about as far as I get into this topic. I'm a Hispanic guy. I don't identify as white, so enjoy whatever weird conspiracy theories you got.
Okay,
But,
real quick. I got two things, and then I want to get back into it. Or three things. Maddie P on the road. You are not absolved from liability, my friend. I just haven't gotten to it. It says, if you read this, I will buy and wear a Bane mask on my next security shift with some kind of proof. Reasonable time requirement. So now, sir, you are bound to it. I did not have to read your chat, and you did not have to make that promise, but we are contractually obligated at this point, sucker. Reno says DNC was the test case blocked by Kickstarter.
Yeah, DNC was the test case, 100%. Yeah, so this has happened to look. Zach is a moderate guy. I mean, he's a pretty moderate guy as it goes, and they did it to him just because he's on YouTube and he bothers people. That's all that's all it takes to get this kind of discrimination, and I don't want that to happen to anybody.
Did you hear though? I heard that he called someone a mean name once.
Oh my gosh, that is terrible. That somebody said a mean thing on the internet. I've never seen that in my life.
This is new. This is new territory for the internet. I mean, it's been around a long time. This is new. Mean words are new on the internet. And I can't believe they seeped over from real life into it, but it's happened now because of Zach. Because of him. But, okay, so then we've got Panboy Lando, Soy Child, Dong Lover. And your name, just saying that name alone almost needs a separate super chat because it's so long. I feel like that's a way to get around the super chat character limit is to have a super long name. He says, please ask John about copying EVS's idea with his Comic Writer Pro secret stream. I don't know what that's about.
I made a scene. So EVS does these Comic Artist Pro secret streams about art.
Right.
They're very successful. This is how I found out about EVS's existence. I loved these streams. I thought it was fantastic. I can't draw with beans myself, and I really loved tuning in and watching his process. I thought it was beautiful. I loved the art that he created, and I thought it was just fantastic. And so I thought, wow, these are very successful, and I'm a good writer, so I can talk about writer secrets. And talk about just like how to help people like with their writing craft and the way that he's doing with his art craft. And I definitely wanted to copy that. That's 100%. I love what he's doing, and I definitely want to do that in my own way as best I can. 100%.
Awesome. And I don't. Whatever your opinion of copying or whatever, taking an idea that someone is doing. Modifying that idea and making it something different that's how our society has built.
And pure credit to EVS on that. I mean, that's a great idea that he started that.
Yeah. 100%. And I assume EVS has never called you and been like, hey, what's up? About that.
Not yet. If he does that, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the dog whistle because I'm obviously the EVS shill now. Because I get along with them and we've had good conversations. I think I'm his agent.
Nice.
And I'm charging him 15%
hourly,
now.
Right? Hourly, right?
Yeah. Well, I might charge him by the hourly. I don't know if I'd get enough out of him because he's kind of shattering the hourly rate of comic book artists. So I think I'm going to charge him a flat percent.
Okay, good.
GRP Poll says, as far as I can tell, people aren't saying, quote, this won't happen to me. What I've seen is, quote, if this happens to me, we will create our own crowdfunding source.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen a lot of that too. I've seen both. I mean, so it just depends on who you're hanging out with, I guess. I'm more with the creator end of things more than like the fan end of things. So I've seen a lot of people kind of try to justify, it's not going to happen to me. And I want to talk about this because in the convention circuit, it happened with me first for science fiction.
Right.
And then it happened with the second one was Kevin Sorbo, the Hercules actor.
Yeah, he's too Christian for them.
He's too Christian for them, guys. So he got kicked out of East Coast Comic Con and said that. And I actually interviewed him for the Federalist on this. Kevin Sorbo's interview was fantastic. I'm going to read you it because it's amazing. So his first response to me was, banning me? Ha! I have never heard of them or tried to get into their tiny little con. Too funny. I love lefty insecurity. Ooh, they are so brave. I guess I scare them and they need to hide in their little safe spaces. Tell the commies I am fine not being a part of their so-called con. Too funny. I would love to debate them on government or anything for that matter. Throw a few facts, stats, and truth at them and they freak out. Kevin Sorbo is awesome.
Yeah. So, Kevin, side story. My grandma's down in Tyler, Texas, and some group that she was in brought Kevin Sorbo as a speaker to this convention in Tyler, Texas, and so Tyler is.
I've been to Tyler, Texas.
It's a big town, yeah. but for Texas, it's a small town.
Yeah.
So you can either fly into Tyler to their tiny little airport, which does have really good sized hamburgers though, or you can fly into Dallas and drive to Tyler. So Kevin Sorbo.
That's what I did. That's
yeah.
what I did.
So, and trust me, as someone who has done both, don't fly into Tyler. That like the Pringles can you have to fly in on is terrible. I hate those prop jobs. It's like
a long drive though by the same token.
Yeah, it's like two and a half hours. Yeah. But it's in Texas speeds, it's like an hour 45 to be fair. So basically these three old ladies go and pick up Kevin Sorbo and they have him captive from Dallas to Tyler in the car, and they're just chatting with him, and he apparently was just like the most gentlemanly and fun guy. Dealing with these three older women and just driving to this convention in small town Texas. # small town Texas. So he seems like a good guy. I'd love to meet him sometime.
Yeah, it was cool to get to interview him. I was shocked he responded to me, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm always shocked when anyone responds to me, actually. So I know the feeling. But so you're you're the test case here.
And then Kevin hit. After that, John Ringo, he's a military science fiction author, military veteran guy, just standard Republican conservative guy. He got removed as a guest from Carolina's con because some SJWs were causing a fit about him. He's a big New York Times bestseller, a lot bigger than me. I interviewed him and wrote him up for the same thing. I've kind of made a mark in journalism, just like covering these conventions at this point. And then in the summer, Origins Game Fair, which is kind of like the allegory to Gen Con, very close to Gen Con. It's a little smaller, but it's still pretty big. It's in the Midwest. They banned Larry Correia, who is the Monster Hunter International writer and a great guy. He's like a teddy bear, just a super nice, chill guy. But he's a big Second Amendments guy. He's a big libertarian type guy. They banned him because the SJWs started panicking about him. So it just started happening across the board to conservative authors. All the big conservative authors, minus a couple, have now gotten hit because this precedent got set and because like people just got emboldened by this. So it's a very bad thing. These are test cases the first time, and they will start to hit everybody and start to infringe upon everybody's free speech at some point.
Right, and that's the thing that I've been seeing a lot of. I mean, when it comes to liberty, we can't be divided. You can divide on everything, every single issue, but if Tariq Nasheed gets deplatformed, I'm the guy out there defending Tariq Nasheed, right? Like, we don't want anyone deplatformed. The dumbest idiot, the most hateful person, I want them saying exactly what they're going to say as much as possible. I want everybody to be able to speak. And that's where I'm just so confused in all of this stuff, is when we celebrate the deplatforming of anyone. And now, I will take a moment to smile internally when certain people do get fired or whatever, only when there's
Are we going to talk about a certain man named Charles Wendig?
I mean, we could. I don't know anything about him other than...
I know a lot.
Yeah,
so
we can talk about him.
This guy came after me when I was nominated for the Dragon Award in 2017 in August. That's kind of when my name started getting hit among the bigger circles in writing. And I was like, it kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, wow, I can't believe I got this. And then, lots of big name authors started just talking smack about me because I got nominated for this. Because when you get nominated for the Dragon Award, you're associated with right-wing things.
Sure.
Chuck wrote a nasty blog about me and about, about like using politics in order to get famous or whatever. And I was just shocked. I'm like, I don't know this guy. I don't know who you are. Why are you writing a blog about me? I'm just like some no-name author who sold a couple $1,000, right? And you're a guy who's writing for Star Wars and Marvel. Like, what? The differentiation in my mind was like, he's here, I'm here, it was very weird. So I started kind of going back and forth with him a little bit on Twitter because of that. And I was definitely not nice to him after he wrote a nasty blog about me. My face was like that when he wrote a nasty blog about me.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh God, it's just, that stuff is
pretty bad, huh?
garbage.
Take that chaser. So he went on Facebook, a group, and like people were talking shit about me, and he called me a septic diaper.
Why?
Right. I'm like, I don't have any clue who this guy is, and he's calling me a septic diaper, and he wrote a blog about me. What the F is going on here? And then later on, a couple of months later, he was writing a nasty thing about President Trump, and it looked violent. It looked like he was talking about like, I think it was like a fictional character he was talking about taking a machine gun and shooting a TV up because it had President Trump's image on it. I was like, whoa, that is like unhinged. And so I just commented, and I just went, at Secret Service, you might want to look at this. And he flipped out and said, Jon Del Arroz is swatting me. And blah, blah, blah. I'm dead serious.
What does he think happens when someone makes a threat against the Secret Service? Does he think a SWAT team, or a threat against the president? Does he think a SWAT team shows up? No, it's actually typically.
So he's been going off saying I've swatted him since then. I mean, he's literally just gone around to people telling people I've done this. And it's like, swatting is actually a crime, and it's actually like people showing up at your house and like getting the SWAT teams to show up at your house. It's not tagging you on a Twitter post, right?
Right.
So very bizarre, but the septic diaper was the comment that did it. I'm going to use that. I'm putting out a short story collection in November, and I'm going to put all the nice quotes on the back of it.
Yes.
With all these. So Chuck Wendig's going to be right on there. So I have no love for Chuck Wendig whatsoever. And I definitely laughed when I saw this happen today.
Absolutely.
Because,
it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny when it happens, whether we agree or not. But man, the people who are shoveling it, being forced to eat like a ladleful.
At the same time, this is not going to be the popular opinion here. At the same time, I have empathy for him as somebody who's been targeted and deplatformed and destroyed and all that, like over, just because I'm a quote mean conservative on social media.
Right.
So I do have a little empathy for the guy. Like I kind of wish we didn't live in a world where companies would fire somebody over a mean tweet or two, but because it happens to me over just existing, and I haven't done anything nearly to the point where what he's done. Right. It's kind of turnabout's fair play. I mean, I hope we can eventually get back to a society where this doesn't have to happen. My ideals are that this is wrong, that I don't want an artist to be punished for their opinions. But at the same time, like, it's like, if I have to be, I guess you have to be, right?
Yeah, yeah,
sucks.
it's Schadenfreude, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the whole idea is that, and we can take a moment and have some mirth with it, but we can be against the principle of firing people for words, right? Like
Right.
that's okay. I will fully admit to laughing when James Gunn got fired, and it's
I did email Chuck Wendig because I used to be accepted in the science fiction communities before I came out of the closet here, guys. So
sure.
I have everybody's private email addresses and all that are big names that you can even think of. And
Oh,
I talked to more.
did you just threaten to dox all science fiction writers on the show? I think
know,
you
right?
did.
Right. I have all. It's like I talk to more people than anybody realizes. I'm like one of those like serial networking people. So it's like all I do is network with people.
Oh.
So I wrote to Chuck and I said, "Hey Chuck, would you like to talk about free speech and its benefits and how we can come together and change the corporate entertainment culture and perhaps boost our sales? I'm down if you are, and we can make big waves if we did it together. It would shake up everything. Just a thought."
Chuck, same. Hashtag same, fam. Chuck, come on the show. We'll talk about it. And
Let's do it.
unironically,
Let's help Chuck.
no, and cause like I laughed when James Gunn got fired, but at the same time, I like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and I really don't care that he said jokes years ago. I get the holding him to the standard. I understand, and I find it hilarious. But at the same time, I don't want anybody deplatformed ever. Like I really don't. I want people to be free to express themselves.
The problem is Chuck is so NPC'd. He's in his like NPC world.
Yeah.
But no matter what, like he's not going to reach out back to me and actually like talk about free speech and care about free speech now. He's going to go, Comicsgate is the problem. Comicsgate ruined my life and I need to destroy Comicsgate. Free speech is still bad. And that's not the lesson he was supposed to learn here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so shifting topics slightly, we're adjacent to this, but you mentioned all the science fiction writers. So hit me with your favorite sci-fi novel.
My favorite sci-fi novel is kind of a weird one. It's The Crystal Singer by Anne McCaffrey.
Okay.
And it's a story about a girl who it's musical, and obviously I'm a big musical guy, as we kind of talked about at the beginning of the chat. So she's got like a operatic background singing sort of thing in the future in this like galactic world, but she's got a weird burr in her voice, so she can't actually do it. But it turns out there's this planet that like mines crystals that like is the communication devices that can go intergalactic, because as we know, we can't actually have sound travel through faster than light, otherwise there's problems. So this is how they actually communicate across galaxies. They take like two crystals that actually resonate together, and then they always resonate together, so they can do that. So the way you mine those is actually through using perfect pitch and actually tuning these sort of things like with your actually singing voice. And so she can do that and get rich and do that. And so she ends up doing that. And there ends up all these complications because there's all these weird sci-fi things that happened with it. So a very nice musical. I really love the addition of music into sci-fi and very cool sci-fi concepts, and also a very beautiful romantic plot. I'm a sucker for romance, guys. So
okay, have you read The Sparrow by Maria Doria Russell?
No, I haven't even heard of it. The Sparrow.
Okay, so it's this is not my favorite sci-fi book. My favorite sci-fi book is a two-parter. It's Ilium and Olympus by Dan Simmons, which are just fantastic.
Yeah, I'm big into Hyperion. Good stuff.
Yeah, I've got the whole Hyperion and Endymion and whatever the sequels are. I've got them all, but I haven't read them yet. But Ilium and Olympus, man, whew, those are so good. But The Sparrow is it's got some music for you. That's why I'm telling it to you.
I've got it up right now. Nice.
So yeah, this group of people find evidence of alien life by picking up music that they have broadcast out for whatever reason. They broadcast it, and they're pretty close. I think they're in the constellation Virgo or something like that, but not a very far away star. And so the Jesuits being missionaries, decide that they're going to send a team before anybody else. So one of the main characters is a Jesuit priest. And then he gets his friends who have all these different expertises that would be useful on the trip, and they they, along with a couple other Jesuit priests who are missionaries, go to convert this alien race to Catholicism, right?
Oh,
Like
this is my speed. I like this.
yeah, and there's romance, there's music, it's absolutely tragic, and great. There's loss and redemption. It's got all the hallmarks of like your highbrow literary fiction along with all the good stuff of science fiction, and it's like a near future. It's not implausible, or it doesn't take a huge stretch of the imagination to figure out how this stuff happens. So I thoroughly enjoyed that book. It's a great one. I like to recommend.
I'm gonna grab that 100% based on your recommendation. So sounds good.
You're welcome, Maria Doria Russell.
Come on the show.
yeah, you come on the show too. We'll talk sci-fi and Catholicism at the same time. Maddie P on the road says, why backspace next to delete on phone keyboard? I have no idea.
That is like a stupid thing, actually, if you think about it. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to ask the slaves that Apple hired.
Oh, are we going to talk Wheel of Time? I see some Wheel of Time in the comments. I am a huge Wheel of Time guy.
Never read it.
Wheel of Time guy. Oh my gosh, I am like Robert Jordan obsessee right here.
My buddy has been trying to get me to read Wheel of Time. He's also been trying to get me to read Dune because I'm such a pleb. I haven't ever read Dune.
Dune?
No, I started.
Wow.
I started, and it's not Dune's fault. I was in a really bad mood, and I read like the first 10 pages and was just pissed. And it wasn't Dune's fault at all. It was a bad place for me to be in to start reading a new book that I wasn't familiar with. I also, I read a lot of Warhammer.
I see this.
That's all Warhammer 40K.
I've got a Horus Heresy omnibus that a buddy gave me, and he's like, you have to read this. And I just like have avoided it because I don't want to get into Warhammer, because I'm an obsessive person.
Yeah.
So if I get into Warhammer, it's going to be problematic, and I might lose my marriage over it.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But yeah, I'm a big I'm big into like Templars and things like that. So he's like, dude, you'll love this so much. And I'm actually, the reason I haven't gotten into it is I'm scared I'll love it so much.
Oh, it's really addictive, and that's part of the reason that it was hard for me to read Dune, is because I'd been reading so much Warhammer that I sat down to read Dune, and I have to shift gears entirely to get into this completely different universe with different rules and different lore, and I wasn't ready to do it. So I'm trying to finish up a couple more books, and then I'm gonna try Dune again, because I'm losing all sci-fi credibility by not having read it.
True.
Hold on, we got oh yeah, Mark C says you both should read Heinlein's book Day After Tomorrow, or its other title, The Fifth Column.
Already done, guys. I am a proud owner of so I'm a big collector type guy, and I'm obsessive, as I mentioned. So Heinlein, they came out with this, it's called the Virginia edition, and it's these leather bound versions of every piece of work Heinlein ever came out with. Not only his books, but like essays and like letters he wrote to Arthur C. Clarke and things like that. Like it's awesome. So I get to read like all these like just like things he was writing, where it's like, you know, he's just talking about his writing and things like that. So I'm a big Heinlein guy. That's an interesting book. I wouldn't even say that's even one of my top 10 favorite Heinlein books, but it's a good book.
Yeah. If you really want, I'm gonna ruin you a little bit. Get the Eisenhorn omnibus. Someone mentioned read the Eisenhorn trilogy from Warhammer 40K. You don't. I mean, Horus Heresy is great, but Gregor Eisenhorn. It's written by Dan Abnett. I'm guessing you know Dan Abnett.
I know who Dan Abnett is. Yeah, for sure.
And and the Eisenhorn trilogy it's good.
I don't have time to read books, guys. I'm trying to write my own.
Yeah, that's the
only book you need is the Ember War graphic novel, which is on IndieGoGo right now, guys.
Yes, go check it out.
That's going to be your Bible.
Now,
if you like all this stuff, seriously, it's like this stuff influences me. So I'm definitely not going to do sci-fi wrong with my work here.
The crazy thing with Ember War is I had not looked at it until today when you sent me the link. You mentioned that you had the IndieGoGo, and I'd heard that you write comics and stuff like that. But again, I've been so far out of it. But I was surprised that you mentioned it's 120 pages. So this isn't like this isn't a flimsy little 25-page novel.
I'm not screwing around. So this is an adaptation of a book. So this guy Richard Fox is a military science fiction author. He is a veteran. He actually was a military intelligence guy in Iraq. So he's done 2 tours there. I've gotten some very cool insight off of him just talking to him out of life, because he's just, he has such cool experiences. And he wrote this series of books, which is just like aliens invaded Earth, and they showed up and Earth wasn't ready for it. So they just like torched everybody. But there was, and so super post-apocalyptic, but a little ragtag band of humans survived and are fighting back and are basically just like gonna take back the Earth and purge the Xenos.
Yes.
So that's literally what this is about. I mean, it's just like it is a and of course they have like nice like Transformer style mech armor, so that they can deal with these alien threats, and it's just a ton of fun. So what happened was I read these books, and Richard was up against me for the Dragon Award in 2017 as I was kind of getting famous as an author in my own right. And I was sitting there, I was really cocky about it. I thought, wow, my stuff's going to be big. I've got this, like, I've got a game related property, so there's no way I'm going to lose. And then Richard Fox comes in and he gets like 10 times the votes I do and kicks the shit out of me. And I'm like, who is this guy? And so, right. And so I start talking to him, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I read his books, and I'm like, these are really freaking good. These are like Hollywood movie books. And no wonder he beat me. So I kind of just started talking to him about that. And I was looking at comic making potential at the time. And I'm like, have you ever thought about just making your book into a comic? And he's like, I love comics. I'm actually like a big X-Men / Wolverine guy. Here's all my like hardcover omnibuses. Let me show you. And I was like, sweet. And he's like, I don't know how to make comics though. And I'm like, well, what a coincidence. I do. So
we can work together.
Nice partnership. And it's really cool. It's a really cool writing challenge, because I have to like be faithful to the books. I have to kind of like make the characters pop on the page in a different way because of comics. And I also get to like, kind of put my own spin on things, because I get to kind of, mess with dialogue to make it work in comic form myself. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, I've thought about the comic thing, and it's like, I don't know. I have no idea how to do that medium. And that's an interesting aspect of writing. It's
just a cash grab, dude. Just do it.
No, but it's like, it's not even that. Like
I'm just kidding, people, except for Cecil's cash grab, which is a real cash grab.
Yeah, but cash grabs I'm okay with, right? Like if it's a cash grab because you're creating a product that you think people like. And the funny thing is, in the independent creator community, there isn't really, I mean, you can kind of do a cash grab, but you're banking all of your credibility on that one cash grab, right? That's
100%.
The whole thing, is that there is no Marvel name backing up whatever schlock you're putting out. There's no DC saying, yeah, we're gonna publish this book and you're gonna like it because it's DC and you know what quality DC brings. You're just a guy, you put up your sample pages, you've got your art, you're laying everything out for the public to see. I mean, they can't see the full book, obviously, but you're like, here's the outline of the story, the premise of it. There's going to be some surprises. Here's the art. Here's the style that I like. I hope you like it. And here's some samples. And if you like this and want to support it, give me a shot. And then people might give you a shot, and it might be a cash grab and you might make a bunch of money. But if you do, and you don't deliver, then that next product that you put out is not going anywhere.
I think that's a big deal. And we see that a lot. I mean, with IndieGoGos and Kickstarters and things like that, there's actually a pretty high percentages of just like never delivers. But I think because
it's amazing how many of those are comic professionals
right,
and big comicsgate critics. Isn't it like that shocking how many of them? And anti-Gamergate people had that problem too, didn't they? There's someone, she's not very famous. I think her name is Zoe Zoe Quinn?
Zoe something. Uh,
Who maybe got $85,000 and didn't ever deliver on the project ever?
well, of course not. So anybody who knows anything about the video game industry knows that you can't make a freaking video game for $80,000. And now she knows this, but she has your $80,000. People, don't you feel stupid? But I think it's really different with the comicsgate crowd, because the comicsgate crowd is mostly professionals who like understand who understand like the personal liability, the personal responsibility, because of just like our ethos, like of who we are. And so I think every single one of these, if I was a betting man, will deliver. And there might be a couple that are a couple months late or something like that, but not egregiously late. I think this crowd is really working because we love comics. We have a real work ethic, and we're working to change the industry, and we all really want to succeed here.
Well, it's amazing that it seems like when Comicsgate guys are late in delivering, they're upfront with the community about it. They're open about the reasons. I know Meyer's a little late on Jawbreakers. It's almost like something happened to try and sabotage what Meyer was doing. And he's had to worry about some other stuff.
Almost.
And I think the other problem is that
and by the way, I know a lot of the guys, like, I talked to John Malin and Brett R. Smith on the art end. The comic's pretty much finished now. So it's not going to be that late.
Right.
It's almost done. So
yeah. And the other thing is that, I think one reality is that the overwhelming success of these guys, like watching Meyer's updates on how ridiculous it is to do all this shipping by yourself, is kind of a funny thing. They seeing the picture of the truck pull up and drop off all of the copies of Iron Sights and him having to shove them all in media mail envelopes and send them out.
It was awesome.
The amount of time that it would take to, like, I don't know if people realize how much work it is to ship out 5,000 units or whatever.
It's freaking weeks. And even with mine, I think I sold like 800 units or something like that. Like, I'm trying to find ways to avoid that and make somebody else do the work.
And it's tough.
Once the printing gets done here, and it's in the printer right now, I delivered the digital edition already of my first book. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my time packing books, because I want to spend my time writing books. That's kind of my thing. One of your people said, though, that we could do like an Ace Attorney comic, and I agree. Like, we could could just make you the superhero, and then just go objection, and everybody would eat it up 100%.
Yeah, the only problem is I'd probably be like too much of a purist. I'd be like, this is not accurate to the law. Maddie P on the road says 1 in 4 Americans do/did serve in military, not spec. Okay, I believe you.
Thank you for your service.
Yes,
everybody who did, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Pro-military on this channel, generally speaking, except for a guy named Bo Bergdahl. But so we were talking creators, the liquor's settling in, we'll say, and I'm starting to lose track of conversations. But no, I think what I wanted to. What I want to do now, I think this is the last topic I want to go into today, because we're getting long on the stream, and I'm extremely appreciative of your time.
Yeah, no problem.
And I definitely want to talk to you more. But I want to talk to you about Comicsgate, because there's conflict that I've seen online. Is Jon Del Arroz in Comicsgate? Someone mentioned you started Comicsgate. Because that's been like all of the discussions I've had on my channel with people in some way relate back to this question of what is Comicsgate. And so I'd like to propose to you the question, because not because any of us are authorities on what it is, but because I'm always just curious on what people think, because I think we generally, I'm revealing too much. I'm going to shut my mouth.
Yeah.
So what is comicsgate? And then next is, do you consider yourself associated, affiliated with, or a part of comicsgate?
Yeah. So, I'm obviously a non-binary thinker, right? I mean, we've kind of talked about this. Like, I definitely like, am the type of person who has different opinions that kind of go all over the map. And
Sure.
I don't think binary thinking is healthy, and I don't think it's good thinking. So I don't think
I agree.
are you Comicsgate or are you not Comicsgate is a good question, and I don't like that, just by definition. And I also don't want to tie my identity to a hashtag, right? I feel that's like degrading to me in some ways. Like my identity is like that I want to be is I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. I don't want anything else like really to be my identity, right?
Sure.
So beyond that, like Comicsgate is a hashtag that like I was one of the original people writing about, and it came in conjunction with my journalism and with Megan Fox's of PJ Media's journalism. We blew this up to the mainstream media, to like the normies per se, and got this going. And Gate, when you use like Gate, it comes back to Watergate, and when journalists,
it's a controversy.
It's a scandal, right?
Yeah.
It's further than that. And the scandal was Richard Meyer was getting, attacked by these professionals, and people were trying to hurt him. And we thought this was a scandal within the industry because he's a YouTube reviewer and he deserves respect as a human being. And we thought it was politically motivated because these people are extreme left-wing people. And we wanted to fight against extreme left-wing people, sort of blacklisting people out of comic books and forcing their politically correct agenda on people. And so that's what it means to me. I want to stop that forcing of the political correct agenda. I want people to be able to write what they want. I want artists to be able to be independent and to be able to express themselves regardless, and not have to be fearful or coerced by that sort of like left-wing pressure. And that's where I'm at, and that's my sort of modus operandi in life.
Gotcha. So you wouldn't consider yourself a part of Comicsgate as a creator, or would you?
I'm definitely part of this group of indie creators, that started with Alt Hero, and then continued with Jawbreakers, continued with Cyberfrog, continued with Graveyard Shift, Bigfoot Bill, and then Flying Sparks, the Ember War. I feel like I'm a part of that group 100%. Those creators are mostly my friends, and they're mostly people that I want to prop up and that I love, and I want them to succeed, and they want me to succeed. So
sure.
Yeah, I am a part of them 100%.
Yeah, and this is my whole thing on Comicsgate is, one, it's not defined, and I think that's a strength and a weakness, and it comes from, I've been talking about a lot, the idea of a bottom up movement is that bottom up movements aren't really movements, they're momentums. And they're not, you can't peg them down because there isn't a central figurehead. People are trying to make EVS, I think, or Meyer, one or the two, a central figurehead, but that's that divide strategy, isn't it?
It is.
Once you appoint a leader, you create everybody else as an other.
This is a lesson from Gamergate, if anybody was a part of that. Gamergate had no leadership, and we were just going and fighting against the mainstream media. And it was just a collective of people fighting against the mainstream media. We're fighting now against establishment producers in comics and the mainstream media. We have a two-pronged giant war against people who vastly outnumber and out-resource us. This is a big deal. And I think it's very important not to appoint leaders, and it's very important just kind of, I don't know. There's a lot of strategic stuff that I could spend hours on also in order to help sort of win the culture war, I guess it is. But yeah, it's you've got a great point.
Well, and I think I think that Comicsgate is a tool, since it's a momentum. In my opinion, this is my definition entirely. No one else that I know of has said this, but I'm sure people feel this. in some way other than me. I'm not unique or special. I just happen to be the one talking. I think it's a movement, and a momentum, not a movement so much, and that momentum is useful, and people can, because no one's in charge, people are able to latch on to that momentum in various ways. I think for unestablished creators, it's a way for them to identify and say, look, I'm comicsgate because I'm like these other guys. If you like a comic that is basically apolitical, that is I'm not welcome in the big two community for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because they're too small or inexperienced, or just or they have unpopular opinions or whatever. They can latch onto that and use that momentum to help get their name out there and get to an audience of people that they want to service. And then, of course, they can't force anyone to buy it. They're not Marvel and DC. They can't just ship some extra books through Diamond on the arm twisting that if you want the next Superman, you're going to also take whatever garbage we send you. So it's a way for people to get in and identify themselves. But then Comicsgate is something different because it's also as a momentum, it's dragging other people. I shouldn't say dragging. It's propelling other people along who don't necessarily identify as Comicsgate, right? Like Vox Day, regardless of the trademark and imprint issue, we'll ignore that weird event. Vox Day has said that he's no longer associated or doesn't want to be associated with Comicsgate, but he's caught up in that momentum as well, and it's a beneficial thing.
You know, and there's a lot of people who overlap. I mean, a lot of people,
right? And
not just you guys. I mean, there's a lot of people who work for Vox, who are, you know, merchandise fulfillers, who are artists. There's a lot of people who anonymously even do so, who are big names, who you know and you love, who are doing so anonymously just to help create the projects, but don't want to take the heat. And you know, I mean, we're all into this together. We are all the rebellion against the establishment. You know, we're all over the map in our different ways, and we're all unique people, and we're beautiful people, right? But we are all still the rebellion.
And I think that's the important part, is that Comicsgate it doesn't require you to do any particular thing. It can't. There's no requirement from a consumer aspect. They can't force you to buy anything. They can't do anything. So if you have overlap with a guy like Vox, because he's outside of the mainstream comic industry, and just this wave is carrying along more ships than just yours, that's okay. That's fine. It should be picking up other independent creators as well who are outside of Comicsgate and don't align with Vox. It should be picking up guys like you who might have a big enough name to not necessarily need to brand yourself as Comicsgate, even though you can be adjacent to the movement and still court some of the fans without necessarily needing to be like
support a lot of the creators. I mean, I've backed, you know, a large number of the campaigns, especially the smaller ones these days, guys. I mean, there's a lot of ones that cropped up. A lot of people got this great thing inside of them. They were like, look, these guys are making money themselves now. I can make my own comic myself. And they put their comics up themselves. Can I highlight a few of these? Because like, I feel like these guys kind of just get like...
what, in the chat? You can talk about whatever you want.
I want to talk about a couple of the comics that like people don't like.
Oh, the comics.
Talk about a lot.
Because,
smaller creators. There's smaller creators who are kind of like just kind of get left in the dust a little bit, that like need the support, and that are really just like trying to make their dreams happen here. And they see Comicsgate as a part of this, and they really thought like, you know, oh, people are just making $20,000-$30,000 off this. I can do this too, and I could start my comics career. And it's a little harder than that. I mean, I have an audience already that likes my books, right? And so that's why mine goes that far. But I want to talk about, like, I want to mention a couple, and I want people to check these out. They're called T-Bird and Throttle. It's by Josh Howard. Josh Howard is a longtime industry vet. He worked for Image for a long time. He did Dead at 17. He's one of my favorite artists out there. Like, I mean, if this gets close, I'm probably going to back this like for $1,000 because I love this guy. T-Bird and Throttle is a great comic. and it's about halfway funding. It's only made $8,000. He needs it. He needs this to keep himself sustained right now. This guy needs your support. We've got Detective Dead. Oh, I'm
no,
sorry.
No, this is good. No. You're going to keep going.
I want to help.
Yes. I want you to DM me the IndieGoGo links, and I'll throw them in the description when we're done.
Cool.
Absolutely.
We've got Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf's another one. It's about a Cherokee warrior. It's by a guy who was kind of just a fan of comicsgate, who's just kind of got into it. It just started. It's got $1,000 to his campaign. Lone Wolf is something that I definitely love, and I want to support. I've backed that one. I love this guy. These are the smaller ones that are getting left behind a little bit because they don't have the YouTube audiences, or they don't have the book audiences, or they don't have the political audiences that a lot of us have. And these are all great people and great creators who are just starting, and it's great. Sporkman is another one, and Sporkman sounds like a silly concept. It is a silly concept. It's a guy who's kind of dressed like a spork, and it's hilarious. What a great concept. And these guys are smaller creators. I back this one too. They're just great people who are part of our movement, who we also need to uplift. And it's very easy to just go on the digital version, just kick in $8 real quick. That's what I've done for a lot of these smaller books. And the smaller books need as much love as these kind of bigger movement books that make a big splash. And this is what indie is all about for me. And I want to uplift the entire indie community. I want this to take over comics. This is my whole deal. This is my passion.
Yeah, and I think the danger at the heart and soul of Comicsgate is the idea, because I'm going to put words into people's mouths here, and they are welcome to correct me, but I say this in all good faith. I don't think Ethan Van Sciver considers himself to be the be-all, end-all of what books are Comicsgate and what's not. He doesn't have unlimited time and unlimited resources to promote every single book out there.
And he's getting bombarded constantly, guys. You got to understand, Ethan's DMs are filled with, "Hey, I want to start a comic. Will you?" I mean, he gets hundreds of these every day. I totally understand that. And that's why I think I can do a service, because for some of these books that are not getting mentioned, and a lot of us can also do that. I mean, there's just plenty of stuff across the spectrum. You can buy what's for you as a customer, and we can just share the love all around.
Yeah, and to give you guys some perspective on what Ethan's got to be like, I get DMs about promoting Comicsgate comics that haven't launched yet. I get DMs and emails about it, and I welcome them, and I would love to talk to these guys if it makes sense for my show. I will have them on, but my show is ultimately a legal show, and it's about legal issues and censorship and stuff like that. So there are some people that I will be able to talk to, and some people that I won't. Next week, I'm going to be talking to someone who's launching a campaign, actually, I think next year, but they're a former local comic shop owner. And so we're going to be talking about comic shop ownership and what it was like over the past couple years.
Gosh, that's a cool show. I can't wait to see that. That's cool.
Yeah. So, that's the type of person that has an easy in on my show, because we've got legal issues to talk about with Diamond and with Marvel and with DC. But there are people who are just soliciting me to talk about their books, and I'm happy to find a way to do that. I don't know if I'm the proper vehicle, but guys, if I'm getting solicited, guys like Ethan, guys like Richard Meyer with the much bigger audiences who are focused on comics books, they're getting them all day. So we do have to find a way to allow the momentum and movement, or whatever you want to label it, for Comicsgate to bring along these other ships. And I think the danger of the heart and soul of Comicsgate is that it will become a small community of curated indie titles, and that's the fear of the indie creators. And I don't think anybody wants that. I don't think anybody wants that.
I can tell you 100% across the board, we have this discussion a lot among the creators, that nobody wants to be a gatekeeper here. Nobody wants to say what's the comic to back, and who's good to back and who's bad to back. We want you to like what you like. That's why I produce just books all over the map almost. It's I've got my superhero book, which did very well. I've got a sci-fi book. So it's like, if you like sci-fi, I'm here for you. If you like superheroes, I'm here for you. I've got a bunch of other stuff in the works later. It'll be different genres, but it's like, yeah, nobody wants to be this gatekeeper here, because we've seen how it operates with these big companies, and we want this to be different, and we want this rising tide to lift all the boats.
Yep, and that's why I think as Comicsgate fans and supporters, we need to be careful, because the ground up movements mean the fans, the supporters, not the creators, not the figureheads, are in charge of the movement. Yeah, I've seen it all over the chat. You guys understand this, that the fans run Comicsgate, and so the danger of that is making sure that that you are going on Comicsgate Live, you are supporting these creators, you are hearing their stories and spreading and advocating for them, but you're also finding other channels to do so, because there are people who just will not, by numbers, have a chance to get on that show. And if Comicsgate isn't about gatekeeping, we've got to find other ways to do it. So that's what I want to say about that. I think that's an important piece. I do have a couple super chats to read. Rhino says, Quinn, aka Chelsea Van Valkenburg, daughter of super wealthy financiers, needed money for a lavish Japanese vacation. Stop complaining, you misogynists. And yeah, that is fantastic, isn't it? I don't begrudge anyone a vacation, but if you just accepted $85,000 from people to produce a video game, a specific product that they're asking for, and you're on a lavish vacation while simultaneously complaining that you just don't have enough money from your IndieGoGo or whatever that you set the threshold for, you're kind of a dirtbag. Mark C says, at this point, Comicsgate is a consumer movement. Ultimately, the customers are the leaders. Absolutely. That's what I was just talking about. And that's how it needs to be. Because if Comicsgate if they crown a king, the king will die. At some point, the king will die. He will be killed. He will be removed and deplatformed. He'll get Alex Jones'd right off the internet, no matter who it is. And that will be the death of the movement. Or it won't be. It'll be a real crisis, though. Cave says they've already compared Comicsgate to Gamergate. It's like when your only tool is a hammer, everything looks like Zoe Quinn getting nailed. Well played, sir. Well played. Well, man, I think we should probably
that's the spot to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think we rah-rahed everybody. We got everything going on. We talked about everything we needed to talk about. It was awesome meeting you, Nick. So you're a great guy, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. And it's awesome meeting you, even though you're a horrific racist. But aren't we all, right? Like that's the modern internet, is that the enemy of whoever is the racist. And so we're all racist together. I'm sure we can all find someone to hate.
I disavow everybody.
Disavow everybody. I disavow and apologize for nothing, because I have learned from Donald Trump that there is no good apology. That it's not possible. And it will never satisfy anybody. And if you're out there, I would encourage you. You can't apologize unless you mean it, and you don't. Be honest with yourself. You don't. You made a joke 5-10 years ago. You don't. You're not actually sorry, because you didn't actually intend to ruin someone's day. Now, there are things in my life I have apologized for. Absolutely. I've said some horrible things personally to people, and I actually regretted it, because the human part of me took over from some other aspect. Typically these are from when I was younger. But, if you made a joke and you did it in good faith, and you didn't really mean to hurt someone, and then someone came along later and dug it up and spread it around, like maybe you said you grab women by the pussy or something like that, and then years later someone comes out and spreads that to a bunch of women who were never intended to hear it, you didn't defend those women. That's not your fault. You had a private conversation with someone else, and then someone else exposed that to people who were never meant to hear it, right? That's a different thing. That's not you attacking anybody or offending anyone, and you don't ever owe anyone an apology for this stuff. You can apologize when you mean it, but trust me, I know you, because I know me, and 99% of the time you don't. So don't apologize. It will never be enough. It will never be enough. So anyway, that's my closing argument. The prosecution rests. John, it's been great meeting you, actually, and I would love to talk again in the future.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah,
so-
let's do that panel that you were talking about. Sounds great.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Ember War is like $500 and something from funding at $20,000, which is what it takes to do the art for this book. So please back this. We're almost there. It's gonna get there. We're like 6 days left, but we can make it happen in the next couple of days. It'd be great. Declare victory and just get the enemies of comics all upset again that we have yet another victory. So check it out.
Absolutely, guys. And the links to, assuming John sends them to me, I'm blaming him if I fail. Assuming John sends them to me, the links to the IndieGoGo campaigns, along with his, will be added to this description as soon as I can get them up tonight. So tonight or tomorrow, whenever that happens. So if you want to check out those books that John mentioned and you didn't get a chance to check them out on the stream, come back, check the description, and you will find them. You'll find those links there, and definitely check them out because we've got to support independent creators. They keep asking what Comicsgate is about and how it can affect the industry, and the way it can is by supporting independent creators. It really that's it. That's the bottom line. So I'm gonna blank out the stream. John, don't leave just yet. I'll tell you goodbye after we say goodbye to these guys. But thank you guys all for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. You guys have a good night.